What if the stones beneath our feet could whisper secrets older than history itself? Across the globe, colossal structures rise from the earth, monuments of precision and scale that challenge everything we think we know about our ancestors. Some were carved with such exacting detail that even modern technology struggles to explain their construction. Others align with the stars with an uncanny accuracy, as if ancient architects had knowledge of the cosmos that we are only beginning to rediscover. How were they built? Why were they built this way? And most haunting of all, what truths have been lost to time, hidden within walls that have stood for millennia? From sprawling temples to mysterious underground chambers, these ancient enigmas continue to defy explanation, leaving researchers and explorers alike in awe and perplexity. Tonight, we journey into these enduring mysteries, uncovering discoveries that have yet to yield their full story. Step closer. What you're about to see may challenge everything you thought you knew about the past. High in the rolling plains above the Vilcanota River, the remnants of Pikillaqta stretch across the landscape like the faint outline of a long-forgotten city. From a distance, the ruins appear orderly, geometric, almost impossibly precise. Straight walls intersecting at right angles, plazas carved from the earth, and a network of streets that seems to extend without end. The pale sun of the high Andes casts long shadows across the adobe stones, illuminating the subtle curves of staircases and the worn, hollowed surfaces of ceremonial platforms. It is a place where time seems to fold back upon itself, where the ordinary rhythms of the present are suspended, and the whispers of a civilization long gone linger in the dry air. Pikillaqta was a center of the Wari culture, flourishing roughly between 600 and 1100 CE. Archaeologists have mapped the site carefully, revealing a sprawling complex of temples, residential quarters, and storage facilities. Its architecture is remarkable, not just in scale, but in sophistication. The walls, constructed with uniformity and skill, suggest an advanced understanding of urban planning. Water channels run beneath the streets, hinting at a practical, almost modern approach to irrigation and sanitation. Scholars point to these features as evidence of the Wari's organizational prowess, their ability to coordinate large-scale construction projects, and their role as one of the earliest states in the Andean highlands. Yet, for all we can measure, record, and describe, Pikillaqta resists complete understanding. Some of its structures, particularly the temples, seem to defy straightforward explanation. Certain rooms have no apparent function. Their walls are adorned with niches and recesses that may have held ceremonial objects, or perhaps nothing at all. The orientation of the main plazas appears deliberate, aligned in ways that correspond not only to the cardinal points, but perhaps to celestial events. Was this purely symbolic, a reflection of cosmology, or could there be a practical purpose that modern researchers have yet to recognize? Even more enigmatic are the clues that hint at a complex social and religious life now lost to history. Some scholars suggest that Pikillaqta was more than a city. It was a ritual landscape, a place designed to mediate the relationship between the living and the divine. The Wari might have been orchestrating ceremonies that required exact spatial arrangements, where the movement of people through temples and plazas mirrored mythological journeys. Other researchers propose that these alignments could have served as a form of astronomical calendar, a way to track time, seasons, and celestial cycles with remarkable precision. Yet questions remain. Why was Pikillaqta ultimately abandoned? There is no definitive evidence of conquest, disease, or environmental catastrophe sufficient to explain the depopulation of such a carefully planned city. Was it the shifting political landscape of the highlands, internal social pressures, or something entirely different? Some theories suggest a gradual decline, a slow unraveling of centralized control. Others, more speculative, hint at ritual or spiritual reasons, an intentional departure that left the temples and plazas frozen in time. The construction methods themselves are also a puzzle. Adobe bricks dominate the site, yet the way they were fired, shaped, and positioned indicates a mastery of materials that seems almost ahead of its time. Certain walls are remarkably thick and durable, standing resilient against centuries of seismic activity and harsh Andean weather. How did the Wari achieve such precision without the tools we take for granted today? And what knowledge, now lost, allowed them to transform mud and stone into structures that could endure long after their creators disappeared? Walking through Pikillaqta today, one cannot help but notice the spaces where the ordinary and the extraordinary intersect. The silence of the plazas, interrupted only by the wind or the distant cry of a condor, feels deliberate, almost ceremonial. The pathways that once guided priests, warriors, or common citizens are empty, yet their lines of movement are still legible, etched into the very fabric of the site. In some corners, fragments of pottery, carvings, and ritual implements hint at daily life. In others, the emptiness itself feels laden with intention. There are whispers among researchers of anomalies that standard archaeology struggles to explain. Certain stones appear to be shaped with a precision that seems to exceed the capabilities of typical Wari tools. Some rooms emit subtle acoustic effects, amplifying sound in ways that suggest intentional design. The orientation of specific structures with the sunrise during solstices or with distant mountain peaks continues to provoke debate. Were these choices strictly practical, purely symbolic, or something in between? And so Pikillaqta remains a riddle. Every wall, every plaza, every carefully aligned corridor invites us to consider the intelligence, ingenuity, and perhaps even the spiritual depth of its builders. It is a place that resists simple narratives, one that requires patience, observation, and imagination to approach. As we walk among its ruins, we are confronted with the duality of knowledge and mystery. What we can understand is remarkable, yet what remains hidden is tantalizing. What did the Wari hope to achieve here, within the walls of these temples and across the avenues of this city? What stories were told? What ceremonies enacted? And what knowledge has slipped away with the passage of centuries? Pikillaqta does not give its secrets easily. It asks us to look closer, to consider what might still lie beneath the surface, and to accept that some truths may forever remain just out of reach. From the high plains of the Andes, our journey now shifts thousands of miles west, across the Aegean Sea, to a small windswept peninsula on the island of Corfu. Here, among olive groves and the gentle lapping of the Ionian waves, stands the Temple of Kardaki. Unlike the sprawling ceremonial centers of the Wari, Kardaki is modest in scale, almost unassuming at first glance. Yet its simplicity is deceptive. The temple's carefully laid stone foundation, the precision of its column bases, and the subtle asymmetries in its design speak of an ancient architectural vision that still puzzles scholars today. The ruins sit quietly in the Mediterranean sunlight, their once smooth marble now weathered to a soft gray patina, revealing the passage of centuries with an almost meditative serenity. Constructed during the late Archaic period, likely around the end of the 6th century BCE, the Temple of Kardaki is a Doric structure that challenges conventional understanding of Greek temple architecture. Its footprint is incomplete, with walls that seem to defy the rigid symmetry so characteristic of the era. Columns are fewer than expected, and in some instances they appear misaligned, not as a result of erosion or destruction, but seemingly by deliberate design. Archaeologists have debated these irregularities for decades. Was the temple unfinished, abandoned mid-construction, or does it reflect a regional variation in architectural style now lost to time? The site's coastal setting adds another layer of intrigue. Unlike many Greek temples, which were oriented primarily for visual prominence or ritual significance, Kardaki appears to engage with its environment in subtle ways. The axis of the temple roughly follows the curve of the nearby bay, suggesting a potential relationship between the building and the surrounding landscape. Could its design have been intended to capture sunlight at specific times of the year, perhaps illuminating the inner sanctuary on solstices or equinoxes? Or did the builders follow a more practical logic, adapting to the terrain and structural limitations imposed by the rocky promontory? Inside the remnants of the cella, the inner chamber that would have once housed a cult statue, there is a sense of deliberate simplicity, almost austerity. No ornate carvings or friezes remain, at least none that survive in situ, leaving scholars to speculate on what artistic or symbolic elements might have once adorned these walls. Some propose that Kardaki may have served a specialized local cult whose rituals did not rely on monumental decoration, a hypothesis supported by the temple's small scale relative to contemporaneous sanctuaries on the mainland. Yet even this explanation leaves questions unanswered. Why were the columns constructed with such irregular spacing? Why do the foundations include unusual cuttings and depressions, seemingly designed for precise structural purposes but now defying full understanding? Adding to the mystery is the temple's placement within the broader context of Corfu's ancient settlements. Archaeological surveys indicate that Kardaki was part of a network of small sanctuaries and communal spaces scattered across the island. Unlike the grandiose sanctuaries of Delphi or Olympia, these local temples were intimately tied to their communities. Could Kardaki's unconventional design reflect localized religious practices or engineering knowledge unique to this region? Or might there be an entirely different explanation, one that hints at architectural experimentation or experimentation with unknown ceremonial functions? Some researchers have drawn attention to the temple's subtle acoustical properties. When the wind passes through the ruins, faint echoes emerge, bouncing off the stone foundations in ways that suggest an intentional understanding of sound. Was this a byproduct of construction? Or could Kardaki have been designed to amplify ritual chants or musical instruments during ceremonies? If so, what purpose would such acoustic effects serve in a temple that otherwise appears so restrained in decoration and scale? Even the materials used at Kardaki hint at sophistication that is difficult to reconcile with our assumptions about small archaic temples. Local limestone was shaped and joined with a precision that minimizes gaps and enhances stability, an achievement remarkable for builders working without iron clamps or modern mortar. Scholars have noted the way the foundation stones interlock, the subtle inclines designed to manage rainwater runoff, and the care taken to anchor the structure against seasonal winds and earthquakes. Was this meticulous attention to detail a standard of the period, or does it point to a deeper, perhaps experimental knowledge of construction that has since vanished? Despite centuries of study, the Temple of Kardaki resists simple classification. Its anomalies invite a patient observer to ask questions without expecting immediate answers. What was the exact nature of the rituals performed here? Did the asymmetrical column placement and irregular foundation carry symbolic significance, perhaps tied to cosmology, divination, or local mythologies that have no surviving written record? And why does this temple, so carefully constructed and yet seemingly incomplete, occupy a place in the landscape that is both intimate and profoundly commanding, connecting the human-built environment to the natural world in ways that continue to challenge interpretation? Standing amid the ruins today, one senses both the restraint and the ingenuity of its creators. The Temple of Kardaki does not shout its significance. It whispers it in the subtle alignment of stones, in the echoes that linger in its cella, in the quiet dialogue between building and bay. It is a place where practical engineering, spiritual purpose, and artistic expression converge, yet without revealing the full story. We see the legacy of human ingenuity, the echoes of devotion, and the unanswered questions that remain, stretching across more than 2 millennia. As we leave the sunlit terraces of Kardaki and continue our journey through ancient structures that defy explanation, we are reminded that not all mysteries can be solved through measurement, excavation, or theory alone. Some endure because they were designed to challenge understanding, to inspire contemplation, or to leave traces of a world just beyond the reach of certainty. The Temple of Kardaki is one such enigma, a quiet testament to human skill, creativity, and the persistent allure of the unknown. What other insights, buried in stone or hidden in the rhythm of its design, might still await discovery here? Leaving the sun-warmed stones of the Temple of Kardaki behind, we travel north across Europe, to the windswept fields of Cornwall in the southwestern reaches of England. Here, among the rolling pastures and ancient hedgerows, lie structures unlike anything in the Mediterranean, the Fogou. At first glance, they are unassuming. Low, narrow entrances set into the earth, often overgrown with grass and moss, barely hinting at the labyrinths that lie beneath. Yet step closer, and the world changes. Descending into the shadowed passageways, the air grows cool and damp, the walls of massive, unworked stones rising in solemn silence around you. Time itself seems to thicken within these subterranean corridors, as though the earth has held these spaces in quiet reserve for millennia. Fogou, built during the Iron Age, roughly between 800 BCE and 100 CE, are found throughout Cornwall, often in association with settlements that otherwise resemble simple farmsteads. Archaeologists describe them as dry stone underground passages, sometimes extending tens of meters, their ceilings formed by massive lintels and corbelled stonework. Despite their apparent simplicity, their construction is precise and deliberate. The stones are carefully chosen and fitted, the passages ventilated and reinforced in ways that indicate a sophisticated understanding of both weight distribution and subterranean airflow. Yet what these structures were truly for remains a matter of debate. Some scholars suggest practical uses, storage spaces for grain or perishables, protected from the damp and fluctuating temperatures of the Cornish landscape. Others propose more defensive purposes, perhaps hiding places during raids or safe havens in times of conflict. Archaeological evidence has produced intriguing hints, yet no consensus has been reached. Unlike forts or hilltop settlements, Fogou are hidden, secretive, and unassuming from above, a design that invites speculation. Why go to such effort to construct an underground labyrinth when simpler storage methods were available? There is a distinct sense of ritual or ceremonial purpose that cannot be ignored. The passageways often curve unexpectedly, leading to spaces that seem too small for gatherings, too elaborate for mere storage. In some Fogou, small alcoves and recesses appear to have been deliberately placed, perhaps to hold offerings or objects of significance. Rare artifacts, iron tools, fragments of pottery, and occasional animal bones have been recovered, yet never in sufficient quantity to define a clear pattern. Could these spaces have served as ceremonial centers, designed to mediate between the living and the unseen? Or were they practical spaces imbued with symbolic meaning? Acoustics within the passages add another layer of intrigue. Sounds echo in strange ways, amplifying whispers and footsteps alike. Some researchers have suggested that Fogou may have been used for rituals involving sound or incantation, their narrow corridors creating a controlled resonance that heightened sensory perception. Could the builders have been attuned to the effects of sound on human experience, creating a space where voice and echo became part of the ceremony itself? Or are these acoustic effects merely coincidental, a byproduct of stone and space? The distribution and placement of Fogou across Cornwall also provoke questions. They are rarely found in isolation, often located near settlements, but never at the most obvious or prominent points. Was this intentional concealment a desire to hide their function or protect what was inside? Or might their positions correspond to older, even prehistoric, sacred landscapes, alignments with hills, water sources, or celestial events that we can no longer fully interpret? The lack of written records from the Cornish Iron Age leaves these questions frustratingly open, allowing the Fogou to retain their silent authority across centuries. Even the construction techniques themselves remain partially enigmatic. Massive stones, some weighing several tons, are fitted with care, yet the methods by which they were quarried, transported, and raised remain speculative. There is no evidence of advanced machinery, yet the precision and stability suggest skilled engineering knowledge, passed down through generations and perhaps intentionally shrouded in secrecy. Why commit so much labor to subterranean spaces that were deliberately hidden? Was it a reflection of cultural priorities, spiritual belief, or simply the ingenuity of a people responding to their environment in a unique way? Walking through a Fogou today, one is struck by the stillness. The cool walls absorb sound, the narrow passageway constrains movement, and the faint scent of earth and stone reminds us that we are in a place that has been untouched for centuries. It is easy to imagine a world in which these spaces were alive with activity. Whispers of ritual, secret meetings, or practical work carried out under the watchful care of those who built them. Yet the silence that greets us now is no less powerful, hinting at the enduring mystery of human purpose, ingenuity, and belief. Some have speculated wildly: lost knowledge, forgotten rites, connections to other enigmatic underground structures across Europe. But the Fogou resist easy categorization. Their simplicity is deceptive. Their concealment is deliberate. They demand patience, observation, and imagination from anyone seeking to understand them. Each passageway, each massive stone, each curve in the corridor is a question posed across the millennia, an invitation to consider what human life, belief, and ingenuity looked like in a time we can only glimpse through fragments. As we emerge from the cool darkness back into the sunlight of the Cornish fields, the Fogou leave a lingering impression, a quiet, unsolved enigma that challenges modern assumptions. How did the builders conceive of these spaces, and why? What knowledge, now lost, allowed them to construct subterranean passages that endure so well? And what purposes, practical or spiritual, have vanished with the passage of centuries? For every answer archaeology provides, the Fogou continue to withhold more, a subterranean riddle whispered across time, inviting us to wonder what still lies hidden beneath the earth. From the subterranean quiet of Cornwall, our journey moves across the Mediterranean once more, to the rugged hills of the Argolid in southern Greece. Here, the landscape is punctuated by the remains of a civilization that thrived over 3 millennia ago, the Mycenaeans. Among their most enduring and enigmatic achievements are the Tholos tombs, beehive-shaped structures hewn from stone and earth, rising with a silent grandeur on the slopes surrounding the citadel of Mycenae. From a distance, the tombs seem deceptively simple, smooth conical mounds echoing the natural contours of the hills. But step closer, and the scale, precision, and ambition of these ancient builders become clear. The most famous of these, the so-called Treasury of Atreus, exemplifies the astonishing architectural mastery of the Mycenaeans. Constructed around 1250 BCE, it consists of a circular burial chamber, capped by a massive corbelled dome that remains the largest unreinforced stone vault in the ancient world. The entrance, marked by a monumental lintel and an intricately designed dromos, a long passageway leading to the tomb, suggests ceremony, grandeur, and deliberate staging. Every stone is carefully fitted, and the proportions meticulously calculated. The interior, once adorned with precious artifacts, offers a silence that is both awe-inspiring and unsettling, as if the earth itself guards secrets too complex for the ages to fully reveal. Archaeologists have long studied these structures, fascinated by their engineering sophistication. The corbelling technique, which creates a self-supporting dome without the use of mortar or advanced tools, is remarkable even by today's standards. How did the Mycenaeans calculate load distribution with such accuracy? How did they transport and precisely position the massive stones required for both the chamber and the monumental lintel? There is evidence of skilled planning and deep knowledge of geometry, yet no surviving records explain their methodology or the rationale behind certain design choices. Beyond the technical feats, the tombs pose profound questions about the society that built them. Tholos tombs were clearly reserved for elites, but who precisely was interred here? Royalty, warriors, or priestly figures? Some tombs reveal multiple burials over generations, hinting at dynastic continuity and ceremonial reuse. Yet the artifacts within, gold masks, ornate vessels, weapons of bronze, tell only part of the story. What motivated the Mycenaeans to invest such monumental labor and artistry in structures that would ultimately be sealed and left to decay? Was it purely a display of power, a spiritual imperative, or an attempt to communicate across time with those who would come after? The orientation of these tombs adds another layer of intrigue. Many align with natural features, such as hills, valleys, or distant peaks, suggesting deliberate placement within the landscape. Some researchers propose astronomical alignments, hinting at solstices, equinoxes, or lunar cycles. Others see connections to older sacred sites, perhaps inherited or adapted from the preceding Minoan culture on Crete. The evidence is tantalizing but inconclusive. We are left to wonder whether these alignments were functional, symbolic, or an interplay of both. Even the interiors of the Tholos tombs provoke mystery. The circular chamber and domed roof create acoustic effects that amplify sound in subtle ways. Could this have been intentional, perhaps enhancing ritual recitations or the resonance of ceremonial objects? The chambers are also remarkably dry and stable, despite centuries of exposure to the elements, suggesting an advanced understanding of ventilation and environmental control. Were these practical considerations alone, or were they part of a more profound conception of sacred space, where architecture itself was a medium of spiritual or social influence? Artifacts recovered from the tombs offer glimpses of Mycenaean life, yet they raise as many questions as they answer. Gold funerary masks, finely crafted weapons, and ceremonial vessels point to a culture of wealth, artistry, and ritual complexity. But the absence of written explanations, beyond the fragmentary linear B tablets that focus on administrative records, leaves us without a clear understanding of the beliefs, ceremonies, or motivations that drove the construction of these monumental burial sites. Could some knowledge have been intentionally kept secret, encoded in the very layout of the tombs and their relationship to the natural and celestial world? Walking among the ruins today, one is struck by the contrast between permanence and fragility. The tombs have endured earthquakes, invasions, and centuries of weathering, yet much of their original purpose has been lost. The beehive domes rise silently above the Argive plains, mute witnesses to a society whose sophistication continues to challenge modern assumptions. The silence is both haunting and instructive. It invites contemplation of the human desire to leave a mark, to communicate across generations, and to confront mortality with architectural ingenuity. The Tholos tombs of Mycenae, in their enduring presence, remind us that human ambition is not always comprehensible, even when its traces are concrete and monumental. Every curve of the dome, every precisely fitted stone, and every artifact recovered is a piece of a puzzle that remains incomplete. For every insight gained through excavation and analysis, there are as many questions left unanswered. Why did these structures emerge at this particular time in the Aegean? What knowledge now lost enabled their construction? And what meanings, political, spiritual, or otherwise, remain hidden, encoded in the very geometry of the tombs? As we leave the silent Dromos and step back into the sunlit hills surrounding Mycenae, the Tholos tombs linger in memory like shadows cast across time, monuments to skill, belief, and mystery. They do not yield their secrets easily, yet in their presence we are invited to reflect on the complexity of the past, the ingenuity of those who came before, and the enduring allure of questions that remain unanswered. What truths, buried within these stone chambers and the lives they commemorated, have yet to reveal themselves? From the sun-baked hills of Mycenae, we now cross an ocean and journey deep into the high desert of the American Southwest, to a place where stone and sky meet in stark, breathtaking expanses: Chaco Canyon. Here, in the arid reaches of northwestern New Mexico, rises a complex of structures so monumental and precise that their purpose continues to baffle archaeologists, anthropologists, and astronomers alike. The canyon is a landscape of contrasts: towering mesas, narrow washes, and wide-open plains. Yet within this rugged terrain, the Chacoans built architectural feats that seem almost impossibly sophisticated for their time. Walking among the ruins today, one cannot help but feel the weight of centuries, as if the canyon itself holds its breath, guarding secrets long abandoned by human memory. At the heart of Chaco Canyon lie the great houses, multi-story complexes constructed from sandstone blocks, timber, and meticulously shaped adobe. Among the most famous is Pueblo Bonito, stretching nearly 1,000 feet in a crescent shape, its more than 600 rooms stacked with architectural ingenuity and precision. These structures are not mere settlements. They are monumental works of planning, with carefully aligned walls, extensive road networks radiating outward, and great kivas, circular subterranean chambers used for ceremonial purposes, strategically placed within the compounds. The scale and complexity suggest a society capable of organizing large labor forces, managing resources over decades, and developing advanced construction techniques. Yet no written record explains how or why such extraordinary structures came to be. Astronomical alignments intensify the mystery. Many of the great houses and kivas are oriented in ways that correspond with solar and lunar cycles, solstices, and equinoxes. Some researchers propose that Chaco Canyon functioned as a sophisticated astronomical observatory, a center for recording celestial events, or even a ritual calendar that guided agricultural and ceremonial life. Yet the alignment is often subtle and variable, leaving room for interpretation. Was this precision a deliberate statement of cosmological knowledge, a spiritual expression, or a combination of both? And if it was intentional, what knowledge, now lost, allowed the Chacoans to calculate these alignments so accurately without written records or modern instruments? Water management is another enigmatic feature of Chaco. In a desert environment where rainfall is scarce and unpredictable, the builders devised canals, reservoirs, and runoff channels that suggest careful attention to hydrology and environmental sustainability. How did they map and maintain these systems across such a vast, rugged canyon? Were these efforts purely practical, designed to sustain a large population, or did they also hold ceremonial or symbolic significance? Some researchers have suggested that water may have played a sacred role, linking life, ritual, and architecture in ways we cannot fully reconstruct today. Yet many aspects of Chaco defy even functional explanations. The great houses were, in part, hollow structures with rooms that may never have been occupied permanently. Some kivas were exceptionally large, their purpose unclear beyond ritual assembly. Roads extend for tens of miles across the desert, often straight and remarkably engineered, connecting isolated outposts and distant sites. Why build roads through seemingly empty landscapes? Were they trade routes, ceremonial pathways, or symbolic alignments linking sacred places? And if they were functional, what resources or cultural imperatives justified the enormous labor involved in constructing them? Artifacts and remnants provide further glimpses into Chacoan life, yet they deepen the mystery rather than resolving it. Ceramics, jewelry, and tools hint at complex trade networks reaching as far as present-day Mexico and the Pacific coast. Exotic materials, turquoise, seashells, and copper suggest connections across hundreds of miles, implying not only sophisticated craftsmanship, but extensive social and political organization. Yet, the population within the canyon itself may have been relatively small, perhaps numbering only a few thousand at its peak. Why build such monumental structures for relatively few inhabitants? Was Chaco a pilgrimage center, a political hub, or a combination of both? Even the construction techniques provoke wonder. Massive sandstone blocks were quarried from distant outcrops, shaped with care, and transported across uneven terrain. Timbers were hauled from forests dozens of miles away, yet the great houses display precise joinery, stability, and resilience against centuries of erosion and seismic activity. The coordination required for such feats implies knowledge, planning, and labor organization on a scale rarely associated with prehistoric North America. Yet, the cultural framework, the exact methods of engineering, and the underlying motives remain elusive. Walking through Chaco Canyon today, the silence is profound. The desert wind whistles through partially standing walls, carrying the faint scent of sandstone and juniper. The canyon floor is dotted with remnants of rooms, kivas, and roads, each suggesting human intention yet refusing to yield a full story. It is a place where practicality, ritual, and ambition converge, yet where the balance between them remains hidden. Every structure, every alignment, every carefully placed stone is a question etched in time, challenging our assumptions about what ancient peoples could achieve and why. Some theories venture even further, proposals of ceremonial centers of regional importance, astronomical observatories of unparalleled sophistication, or ritual landscapes designed to connect the human and celestial worlds. Yet all remain speculative, because the evidence is fragmentary and the voices of the Chacoans themselves are lost. And perhaps it is precisely this ambiguity that gives Chaco its enduring power. It is a place that invites reflection, imagination, and wonder, reminding us that human ingenuity and spiritual expression often transcend the bounds of what can be fully understood. As we leave the vast, sun-baked expanses of Chaco Canyon and continue our exploration of ancient structures that remain unsolved, one question lingers in the silence of the desert. How did a people, centuries before modern technology, conceive, organize, and execute such a monumental vision in one of the most challenging environments on Earth? And what other insights, still hidden in the stone and sand, await discovery by those willing to look closely enough? From the sun-baked expanses of Chaco Canyon, we journey across continents and climates to the remote landscapes of Siberia, to a stark island rising from the waters of Lake Caracol in the Tuva Republic. Here, on a volcanic island surrounded by dark, reflective water, lie the ruins of Por-Bazhyn. At first glance, it is a fortress-like enclosure, a geometric anomaly in an otherwise wild and untamed environment. The walls form a perfect rectangle, more than 200 meters on each side, with bastions at each corner, and a grid-like arrangement of internal structures that hint at careful planning and deliberate design. From a distance, the ruins appear austere, almost forbidding, yet the silence that surrounds the island invites closer attention, drawing one into a landscape where human ambition meets the vastness of nature. Por-Bazhyn is believed to date from the 8th century CE, constructed during the rule of the Uyghur Khaganate. Yet its precise purpose remains a mystery. Archaeologists have documented the site extensively. The walls, composed of clay bricks fired on site, the rectangular plan, the central courtyard, and the network of internal buildings suggest a fortified complex, yet the absence of permanent habitation debris challenges this assumption. Was it a military outpost, a seasonal palace, or a ceremonial site? The evidence is compelling, yet contradictory, leaving more questions than answers. The site's location adds to its intrigue. Positioned on an island formed by a collapsed volcanic caldera, Por-Bazhyn is both isolated and defensible, yet the waters that surround it freeze solid in winter, transforming the once protective moat into a traversable pathway. Was this an intentional feature, a challenge to visitors and a signal of exclusivity? Or merely the consequence of geography, exploited by the builders to suit their purposes? Scholars have speculated that the island's natural prominence may have held symbolic meaning, perhaps connecting the earthly and the spiritual, or asserting dominance in a remote and politically sensitive region. The layout of Por-Bazhyn is highly geometric, with interior divisions suggesting multiple functional zones, yet these divisions are not entirely consistent with known urban or military structures of the era. The central courtyard, open and expansive, could have hosted gatherings, ceremonies, or administrative activities, but the lack of clear evidence leaves room for speculation. Why, for instance, were some walls oriented along magnetic lines rather than true north, as would be expected in defensive planning? Could this imply ritual significance, astronomical observation, or symbolic alignment with cosmic principles? Construction techniques reveal both sophistication and mystery. The Uyghurs used locally available clay and sand to form bricks, some weighing over 10 kilograms, fired in what appear to have been carefully controlled kilns. The walls, several meters thick, were built to endure the harsh Siberian climate, yet signs of rapid construction suggest urgency or impermanence. Was Por-Bazhyn intended as a long-term fortress, a seasonal palace, or a ceremonial complex erected for a specific event? And if its construction was rapid, what pressures, political, military, or religious, drove such extraordinary effort in an isolated location? Archaeological surveys have also uncovered traces of fire and ash, hinting at destruction or ritual cleansing. Yet the precise circumstances remain unclear. Was the site abandoned due to political upheaval, environmental challenges, or a deliberate ceremonial closure? Some researchers have proposed that Por-Bazhyn may have been intentionally burned at the end of its use, a practice seen in other Eurasian nomadic cultures. Yet this remains speculative. The absence of extensive habitation debris further complicates interpretation, suggesting that the site may never have functioned as a conventional settlement. Por-Bazhyn's design continues to spark debate about its potential symbolic or astronomical functions. Certain alignments of walls and gateways may correspond to solstices or lunar cycles, suggesting that the builders incorporated celestial observation into the planning of the complex. Could this have been a site for ritual observation, a ceremonial center for seasonal events, or a combination of practical and symbolic purposes? And if so, what cultural or religious significance did it hold for the Uyghur elite who commissioned it? Even today, the island exudes a sense of isolation and quiet authority. Standing among the ruins, one is acutely aware of the harsh climate, the wind-swept terrain, and the volcanic rock beneath one's feet. The stark geometry of the walls contrasts with the organic forms of the surrounding lake and mountains, a deliberate intrusion of human order into wild nature. Every corner, every surviving brick, and every alignment of walls seems to pose questions. Who built this? For what purpose? And why does it appear so carefully constructed, yet ultimately abandoned? Por-Bazhyn, in its silent solitude, reminds us of the enduring complexity of human ambition. The island, the walls, and the internal structures speak of knowledge, planning and vision, yet they withhold their meaning. Like the great constructions of Chaco Canyon, the Tholos tombs of Mycenae, and the Fogou of Cornwall, Por-Bazhyn challenges our assumptions about the past. It asks us to consider what knowledge, now lost, enabled its creation, and what purposes, practical, ceremonial, or symbolic, have disappeared with time. As we step back from the island and survey the ruins from the lake's edge, we are left with a profound sense of both awe and uncertainty. Por-Bazhyn stands as a testament to human ingenuity, adaptability, and the mysterious impulses that drive monumental construction, yet it offers no simple answers. What other insights, buried in its walls or encoded in its geometry, have yet to reveal themselves? And what truths about the people who built it, their intentions, and their culture may remain forever obscured by time, climate, and the silence of the Siberian wilderness? From the windswept isolation of Siberia, we travel southward across the Red Sea highlands to the rugged landscapes of northern Ethiopia. Here, perched amid volcanic peaks and deep gorges, lies the town of Lalibela, a place where stone and faith converge in astonishing ways. Carved directly from living rock, the churches of Lalibela rise like frozen monuments, their facades etched into the earth itself, forming a network of sacred spaces that continues to inspire awe and perplexity. The sunlight casts sharp contrasts across their surfaces, revealing intricate facades, narrow passageways, and towering monolithic columns. Walking among them, one is immediately struck by the intimacy of their scale, the precision of their construction, and the sense that every cut, every hollowed chamber, was executed with deliberate purpose. Dating to the 12th and 13th centuries CE, these churches are attributed to King Lalibela, who sought to create a new Jerusalem in response to the capture of the original Holy City. The 11 principal churches are divided into 2 clusters, connected by a labyrinth of trenches and tunnels, forming a cohesive spiritual landscape carved from volcanic tuff. Scholars marvel at the engineering involved. Entire structures were excavated from the top down, isolating massive blocks of rock and hollowing them into complex interior spaces. The level of planning, labor coordination, and architectural knowledge required is extraordinary, yet no written records explain the precise techniques or timelines involved. How did artisans carve these structures with such accuracy? How were measurements maintained when working from above with only basic tools? The placement of the churches within the terrain is equally intriguing. The clusters are not merely functional, they appear to follow topographical and possibly symbolic patterns, with churches aligned along ridges, valleys, and cliffs in ways that suggest intentional relationships to the surrounding landscape. Some researchers propose that these alignments mirror cosmological principles, perhaps representing pathways of spiritual ascent or celestial observation. Others suggest that the arrangement was intended to facilitate processions, ritual movement, and communal worship in ways that remain partially opaque to modern understanding. Why were these sites chosen, and what messages were encoded into their positioning and orientation? The interiors themselves are a testament to both ingenuity and vision. Columns are carved from the same rock as the walls, yet each supports weight with remarkable precision. Rooms are arranged with foresight, including areas for prayer, communal gathering, and ceremonial observance. In some churches, light enters through narrow slits and windows at precise angles, illuminating altars and icons with a dramatic interplay of sun and shadow. Could these lighting effects have been designed intentionally, marking solstices, equinoxes, or sacred dates in the liturgical calendar? Or were they simply a byproduct of architectural necessity? Many aspects of Lalibela remain enigmatic. The tools used to achieve such precise carving were likely rudimentary, yet the artisans created perfectly straight walls, intricate reliefs, and delicate detailing. How was this level of mastery achieved in an era without modern surveying instruments or cranes? Were their techniques now lost to time, passed down orally among a guild of skilled craftsmen? And if so, why did these methods vanish, leaving later generations to marvel without comprehension? There are also tantalizing hints of symbolic and ritualistic intent woven into the rock itself. Some churches feature carved crosses, niches, and reliefs whose meanings are debated, representations of saints, local religious iconography, or perhaps cosmological symbols now obscured by centuries of interpretation. The trenches and tunnels connecting the churches further suggest movement along prescribed pathways, where pilgrims or clergy may have enacted spiritual journeys or reenacted sacred narratives in a highly choreographed ritual environment. Could these subterranean connections encode spiritual maps, guiding the faithful through a symbolic journey from earthly to divine realms? Even today, the churches convey a palpable sense of mystery and devotion. The air within the rock-hewn corridors carries the faint scent of stone dust and incense. Sunlight pierces through narrow apertures, casting fleeting patterns that shift with the day. Walking through the network, one senses the care, patience, and profound intention of the builders. Every cut, every column, every hidden niche speaks to a civilization's desire to merge faith with permanence, to make the intangible tangible, and to create a sacred space that transcends the limits of ordinary construction. Yet, questions endure. How were these monolithic structures carved so precisely, with such consistency, over decades of labor in a remote highland environment? Why choose volcanic tuff, soft enough to carve yet capable of withstanding centuries of weathering, as the medium for such monumental works? And perhaps most compellingly, what motivated King Lalibela and his artisans to invest such extraordinary effort in a project that exists so far beyond conventional urban or defensive purposes, a place devoted entirely to spiritual and ceremonial functions? The rock-hewn churches of Lalibela, in their silent magnificence, continue to challenge our understanding of medieval architecture, religious devotion, and human ingenuity. They are a testament to skill, vision, and determination, yet they withhold their full story, leaving observers to marvel at the interplay of labor, faith, and landscape. As we leave the sunlit gorges and trace the narrow passages carved centuries ago, one question lingers. What other secrets, hidden within the rock or encoded in the orientation of these sacred spaces, have yet to reveal themselves, waiting for those willing to look closely and imagine deeply? From the rock-hewn sanctuaries of Lalibela, we now travel eastward across deserts, mountains, and river plains to the fertile Indus Valley, where the ruins of the Harappa civilization emerge like whispers of a long-forgotten world. Stretching across present-day Pakistan and northwest India, these ancient settlements, Harappa, Mohenjo-Daro, and countless others, reveal a civilization of remarkable sophistication, yet one that vanished almost entirely without leaving a written account comprehensible to us today. Walking among the remnants of baked brick streets, granaries, and fortified citadels, one is struck by the sheer scale and deliberate planning, a testament to human ingenuity shrouded in mystery. Harappa, dating from roughly 2600 to 1900 BCE, was part of the Indus Valley civilization, one of the earliest urban societies on Earth. Archaeologists have uncovered streets laid out in precise grids, houses with private wells and drainage systems, and public structures whose purposes remain a subject of debate. The level of urban planning is staggering. A society capable of standardized brick production, sophisticated water management, and civic organization, all without clear evidence of a centralized monarchy or written records that survive in an intelligible form. How did such complexity arise, and why did it disappear so abruptly, leaving only traces beneath the soil? The bricks themselves hint at the civilization's systematic approach. Uniform in size and composition, they suggest a degree of standardization that implies a coordinated administrative system. Streets intersect at right angles, leading to spacious courtyards and communal spaces. Drainage channels, constructed with careful gradient and covered with stone slabs, suggest an understanding of sanitation unparalleled for their era. And yet, despite this sophistication, we find very few monumental structures or temples. Was religion expressed differently here, perhaps integrated into daily life rather than centralized in grand edifices? Or have ceremonial sites been lost entirely to time and erosion? Artifacts recovered at Harappa offer tantalizing clues. Seals etched with undeciphered symbols, intricate jewelry, and finely crafted pottery speak of artistic and commercial sophistication. Trade networks extended from the Arabian Sea to Mesopotamia, indicating that the Harappans engaged in commerce over hundreds of miles. Yet the meaning of the seals, the organization of the economy, and the social hierarchy remain elusive. Could the symbols reflect a complex system of communication, religious ideology, or civic regulation, concepts that modern scholarship has yet to decode? The urban layout itself raises questions. Cities were often divided into citadels and lower towns, a division suggesting administrative or social structuring. Large granaries hint at centralized food storage, yet no palaces or kingly tombs have been identified, leaving the nature of political authority ambiguous. How was power distributed? Did the society operate through councils, priestly classes, or decentralized networks of merchants and artisans? The absence of definitive answers challenges conventional models of early civilization, prompting us to reconsider what constitutes urban sophistication and governance. Environmental and geological evidence also contributes to the mystery. Some researchers propose that shifts in river courses, climate change, or flooding may have contributed to the decline of the Harappan settlements. Yet these natural explanations do not fully account for the suddenness and scope of the abandonment. Did the civilization collapse from environmental pressures, or were there social, political, or economic factors equally potent? Could a combination of circumstances, unknown to us now, have led to the systematic decline of one of the world's earliest urban societies? Perhaps most enigmatic of all is the enduring silence of the Indus script. Thousands of seals and inscriptions have been unearthed, yet the symbols resist translation. Without a Rosetta Stone equivalent, we can only speculate about the thoughts, beliefs, and bureaucratic systems of the people who carved these marks. Were they recording transactions, religious rites, civic laws, or something altogether more abstract? The unanswered questions encoded in these signs are a stark reminder of how much of human knowledge can vanish, leaving behind only tantalizing traces. Even the spatial organization of the cities invites speculation about ritual and cosmology. The alignment of streets, the orientation of key buildings, and the positioning of communal spaces may have reflected more than practical concerns. Did the Harappans consider celestial patterns, seasonal changes, or sacred principles in their city planning? Or were these decisions purely functional, guided by necessity and efficiency? Each possibility carries profound implications for our understanding of early urban life. Walking among the ruins today, one senses both order and ambiguity. The remnants of baked brick walls rise above the ground like a geometric skeleton, hinting at the lives, labors, and ambitions of a civilization that thrived millennia ago. Yet the silence is profound. No voices, no records, only the wind whispering across the streets and courtyards, inviting us to imagine what once was. Every brick, every seal, every trace of water channels is a question etched into time, a challenge to modern perception, and a testament to human creativity that transcends the ages. The Harappa civilization, in its scale, sophistication, and ultimate disappearance, continues to puzzle and fascinate. How did a people without decipherable writing monumental palaces, or kings achieve such urban and technological mastery? What knowledge, now lost, allowed them to thrive across vast river plains? And why did it vanish, leaving behind only ruins, undeciphered symbols, and questions that echo across millennia? As we leave the silent streets of Harappa and move onward in our exploration of ancient structures that remain unsolved, one thought lingers. Even in the absence of certainty, these ruins speak across time, inviting us to imagine, to question, and to wonder what other secrets lie buried beneath the earth, waiting for those willing to seek them out. From the silent streets of Harappa, we now journey southwest across deserts and river valleys to the fertile lands along the Nile, where ancient Egypt rises in monumental stone. Here, on the western bank of the river, sits the Temple of Edfu, a structure that stands as both testament and enigma, commanding attention with its towering pylons, vast courtyards, and intricate reliefs carved deep into sandstone walls. The temple's facade catches the low light of dawn, revealing sharp shadows that trace hieroglyphs depicting gods, rituals, and scenes of cosmic balance. Walking through its monumental gateways, one feels a sense of scale that is both imposing and intimate, as though the stone itself communicates a story, yet guards its deepest secrets. Edfu Temple, primarily dedicated to the falcon-headed god Horus, was constructed during the Ptolemaic period, between 237 and 57 BCE, yet its foundations echo traditions far older. It is one of the best preserved temples in Egypt, a rarity that allows modern observers to glimpse the structure almost as it was intended millennia ago. The layout is classical, an outer pylon leading to a courtyard, a series of halls, and finally the inner sanctuary. Yet, despite this familiar arrangement, subtle irregularities invite scrutiny. The walls are densely carved with inscriptions detailing mythological narratives and ritual instructions. Yet, the sheer volume of information, combined with ceremonial specificity, leaves many questions unanswered. Why were certain rituals emphasized so elaborately, and how accurately do these reliefs reflect actual practice versus symbolic idealization? The construction itself is remarkable. Blocks of sandstone, some weighing several tons, were quarried nearby yet manipulated with extraordinary precision. Hieroglyphic inscriptions follow the natural grain of the stone, suggesting a sensitivity to material as well as form. The temple aligns with the Nile and cardinal directions, yet some features, small altars, subsidiary chapels, and passageways, deviate subtly from expected patterns. Could these deviations have astronomical or ritual significance? Did the architects encode knowledge of celestial cycles, seasonal changes, or sacred geography into the very orientation of the temple? Beyond the architectural precision lies the challenge of interpretation. The Ptolemies, Greek rulers of Egypt who commissioned Edfu, sought legitimacy by embracing traditional Egyptian religious forms. Yet the resulting temple is a hybrid of cultural influences, blending Greek construction techniques with pharaonic symbolism. How much of Edfu reflects authentic, continuous Egyptian religious practice, and how much was an adaptation for political purposes? Were the hieroglyphs intended solely as records of devotion, or did they also encode practical instructions for priestly conduct, celestial observation, or ritual timing? The symbolism within the temple is profound. Horus, depicted as a falcon or falcon-headed man, dominates reliefs that recount battles against chaos, divine genealogy, and the cyclical struggle between order and disorder. Yet the precise meaning of many depictions remains opaque. Some scholars propose that the elaborate carvings and inscriptions served not just religious purposes, but also encoded astronomical knowledge or metaphysical principles. Could the repetitive motifs, mirrored reliefs, and stylized proportions have been a method of transmitting sacred knowledge across generations, ensuring that even as political powers shifted, the core cosmology of the Nile remained intact. Edfu's interior chambers also reveal questions that remain unresolved. The sanctum, traditionally the most sacred space of Egyptian temples, is remarkably austere compared to the exterior grandeur. Its walls are densely inscribed, yet there is little indication of permanent statuary or decoration beyond the ritual focus on Horus. Was the interior intended to be intentionally minimalist, a contrast to the external spectacle? Or are there lost features, removed or destroyed over centuries, that would have revealed more about the temple's original function? The integration of the temple with the surrounding landscape adds further layers of mystery. Edfu sits near the Nile, but on a slightly elevated terrace, providing both visibility and prominence without dominating the floodplain entirely. Water played a critical role in Egyptian ritual, yet the temple's precise relationship to the river, seasonal inundation, and agricultural cycles remains partially speculative. Did the temple function as a ceremonial hub, a celestial observatory, a civic center, or all of these simultaneously? And if it was multifunctional, how did the ancient priests balance these roles in daily practice? Even today, the silence within Edfu carries a sense of timeless authority. The stone corridors absorb sound, and the reliefs capture the light in ways that change throughout the day, suggesting that the temple was designed to engage its observers dynamically. One can imagine processions of priests, offerings of incense, and the chants of devotion reverberating through these chambers, yet the details of these practices remain elusive. The precision, the scale, and the subtle irregularities hint at knowledge, intent, and ritual expertise that modern scholarship continues to decode, yet without full certainty. Edfu Temple, in its monumental presence and meticulous construction, serves as both a record of human achievement and a reminder of enduring mystery. It invites questions about political power, religious continuity, architectural mastery, and the transmission of sacred knowledge across centuries. Why did the Ptolemies invest so heavily in a project rooted in ancient tradition? How much of the temple reflects historical practice versus symbolic idealization? And what other insights, hidden in the carvings, alignments, and spatial relationships, await discovery for those willing to examine the subtle details? As we leave the towering pylons and step back into the golden light of the Nile Valley, Edfu stands as a testament to human ingenuity and devotion. It challenges our assumptions about cultural continuity, architectural skill, and the mysteries encoded in stone. And as we continue our exploration of ancient structures that remain unsolved, one question lingers. How much of the knowledge, intent, and ritual meaning enshrined in Edfu has been lost to time? And what secrets still wait quietly within its sandstone walls, ready to reveal themselves to those who listen carefully enough? From the monumental stone and ritual corridors of Edfu, we now travel across continents and centuries to the dense jungles of the Yucatan Peninsula, where the ancient Maya constructed cities that rise like islands of ingenuity amidst the tropical foliage. Among these, the city of Chichen Itza holds a unique and enigmatic structure, El Caracol, the so-called Snail Observatory. Its rounded, tower-like form, perched atop a rectangular platform, immediately draws the eye, curving and twisting in ways that distinguish it from the surrounding pyramids and palaces. Sunlight filtering through the jungle canopy highlights its weathered walls, while narrow openings and slits in the tower hint at a purpose that extends beyond architecture, suggesting an intimate relationship with the sky itself. El Caracol dates to roughly the 10th century CE, though its exact chronology remains debated. Unlike other Maya structures, its circular shape is unusual, standing in stark contrast to the angularity of typical pyramids. The tower rises on a wide rectangular base connected by a series of steps and terraces, and the upper chamber contains precisely positioned openings oriented toward key points on the horizon. Scholars have noted alignments with the solstices, the equinoxes, and the apparent rising and setting of Venus, a celestial body of great significance to the Maya. Yet, despite extensive study, the degree to which El Caracol functioned as a formal observatory versus a symbolic monument is still uncertain. Was it a practical tool for astronomical observation, a sacred structure integrating cosmology into the cityscape, or perhaps both simultaneously? The architecture of El Caracol suggests careful planning. The circular tower itself seems to echo the spiral motion of a snail, a design that may reflect both practical and symbolic considerations. Its windows and doors are not randomly placed. They frame the horizon at specific angles, allowing observers to track the movement of celestial bodies with remarkable precision. Could the Maya, without modern instruments, have achieved such astronomical accuracy purely through observation and trial? And if so, what knowledge, techniques, or oral traditions guided their measurements? Inside, the structure reveals a network of narrow corridors and small chambers, seemingly designed for movement and observation rather than habitation. Archaeologists have speculated that these spaces allowed priests or astronomers to make detailed observations while remaining sheltered from the elements. Yet no definitive records survive to explain the methods employed, leaving us to reconstruct intentions from alignments, angles, and orientation. Why were certain openings directed toward the path of Venus, while others mark solstices? Could these choices indicate a calendar system, a ritualized practice, or a broader cosmological philosophy that integrated observation into societal governance and ceremonial life? The broader context of Chichen Itza amplifies the mystery. El Caracol sits near the Great Ball Court, the Temple of Kukulkan, and other monumental structures, suggesting deliberate placement within a carefully designed urban and ceremonial landscape. Could the observatory have coordinated with other structures to mark events, signal rituals, or synchronize the civic calendar? And if so, how did this knowledge influence political, agricultural, or religious decisions across the city? The integration of architecture, astronomy, and civic life speaks to a sophistication that continues to astonish modern researchers. Yet El Caracol retains many enigmas. Its circular form challenges conventional Maya architectural norms, while its precise alignments hint at an understanding of astronomy that rivals later civilizations with written records of celestial observation. How did the Maya develop this knowledge, and how was it preserved and transmitted across generations? Were the observations limited to practical applications such as agriculture and ritual timing, or did they extend to philosophical or metaphysical interpretations of the cosmos? The absence of detailed codices directly describing the observatory's function leaves these questions tantalizingly open. Some researchers have proposed more speculative theories that El Caracol may have served as a hub for esoteric knowledge, a place where priests interpreted cosmic cycles and conveyed them to the city's elite. Others suggest it could have functioned as a symbolic microcosm, representing the spiral of time, the cycles of the heavens, and the interconnection of earth and sky. While such interpretations remain conjectural, the physical evidence, the precision of alignments, the deliberate geometry, and the integration with the city demands consideration. It is a space where observation, ritual, and symbolism seem to converge, yet without clear textual guidance, the full meaning remains elusive. Even today, standing before the tower, the observer is struck by the quiet authority of El Caracol. The stones, worn smooth by centuries of wind and rain, retain a sense of intentionality, as if the builders left instructions written in angles and orientation rather than words. Sunlight plays across its curved walls, casting shadows that shift subtly throughout the day and year, suggesting a dynamic interaction between architecture and celestial phenomena. Every doorway, window, and stairway hints at a sophisticated understanding of the sky, yet keeps its secrets closely held. El Caracol exemplifies the intersection of human ingenuity, observation, and mystery. It invites reflection on the Maya's ability to integrate practical knowledge with cosmological and ceremonial imperatives. How did they reconcile architecture, urban planning, and celestial cycles into a coherent system? What other insights, encoded in its walls or aligned with its apertures, might still elude our understanding? And, perhaps most compellingly, what does the observatory tell us about the worldview of a civilization that saw the heavens not as distant and abstract, but as intimately connected to the rhythms of life, ritual, and power on Earth? As we step back from the twisting tower of El Caracol and look out across the jungle canopy, we are reminded that the skies themselves were part of the Maya's enduring mystery. The observatory stands as a monument to human curiosity, intellect, and devotion, yet its full purpose remains just out of reach. It challenges modern assumptions, urging us to ask not only how the Maya observed the heavens, but why, and what secrets, lost to time or intentionally hidden, await those who study the intersection of stone, sky, and human imagination. From the dense jungles and celestial alignments of Chichen Itza, we now journey northward to the windswept coastline of southern Sweden, where the Baltic Sea laps against rocky shores, and the landscape is punctuated by a curious and enigmatic formation known as Ales Stenar. Perched on a gentle hill overlooking the sea, this megalithic structure stretches nearly 67 meters in length, composed of 59 large boulders arranged in the shape of a ship. From a distance, the stones form a stark, jagged silhouette against the horizon, as if frozen mid-sail, beckoning observers to consider their origin, purpose, and the intentions of the people who erected them. The salty air, the calls of seabirds, and the rolling coastal winds create an atmosphere both serene and haunting, where the past seems to whisper through stone. Ales Stenar's age is uncertain, with estimates ranging from the Nordic Iron Age to as far back as the Bronze Age. Archaeologists and historians have long debated its function. Some suggest it served as a burial monument, akin to ship-shaped graves found elsewhere in Scandinavia, marking the resting place of a chieftain or elite individual. Excavations have revealed traces of burial activity nearby, yet no definitive remains have been found within the stone ship itself, leaving the question tantalizingly unresolved. If not a tomb, what purpose did it serve? Could it have been a ceremonial gathering place, a site for astronomical observation, or a symbolic vessel connecting the living with the cosmos and the sea? The structure's orientation and placement invite speculation. Ales Stenar sits on a ridge with an unobstructed view of the horizon, and some researchers note that the stone arrangement may align with the rising and setting points of the sun during solstices. If this is the case, it could indicate a sophisticated understanding of solar cycles and their integration into ritual practice. Yet the precision of these alignments is debated, and the megaliths themselves are irregular in shape and spacing, suggesting either limitations in construction or intentional asymmetry. Was the apparent alignment a deliberate astronomical tool or a symbolic gesture, a merging of earth, sky, and sea in a single monumental form? The stones themselves are imposing. Each boulder weighs several tons, and the effort required to transport and arrange them on the hilltop is significant, especially given the era's presumed technological limitations. How were these stones moved with such care and precision across uneven terrain? Did the builders employ logs, sledges, or primitive rollers? And beyond the practical challenge, What cultural or spiritual imperative drove the labor-intensive effort to erect such a massive and enduring formation in a location both exposed and remote? Further intrigue arises from the ship-like design. Across Scandinavia, ship symbolism is pervasive in funerary and ritual contexts, often representing journeys to the afterlife or the passage of the soul. Yet Ales Stenar is uniquely massive and visible, dominating the coastal landscape rather than blending into burial grounds or settlements. Could it have been intended as a territorial marker, a statement of power or identity for a community, or even a guidepost for maritime travelers navigating the Baltic coast? The interplay between function, symbolism, and visibility complicates our understanding, as each hypothesis offers compelling yet incomplete explanations. Some scholars have ventured into more speculative territory, proposing that Ales Stenar may have functioned as a calendar, with each stone marking significant celestial events or seasonal changes. If true, this suggests a level of astronomical observation that parallels other ancient sites across the world, from Chaco Canyon to El Caracol, despite vast distances and cultural differences. Could it be that across time and geography, human societies independently sought to anchor themselves to the cycles of the sun, moon, and stars through monumental stone constructions? And if so, what knowledge, now partially lost, allowed these civilizations to encode such precision into enduring forms? The setting of Ales Stenar amplifies the sense of mystery. Standing atop the ridge, one sees the undulating Baltic landscape, the horizon stretching beyond the water, and the sky shifting through the day. The stones, weathered and worn, seem to interact with the environment, catching sunlight, casting shadows, and reflecting subtle shifts in atmospheric conditions. Was this interaction intentional, designed to enhance ritual experience or mark specific moments of the year? Or is it an unintended consequence of placing massive stones in a dynamic, natural setting, whose full significance has been obscured by millennia? Even today, the silence of Ales Stenar is profound. The sea wind whispers through gaps between the stones, and the hilltop offers a vantage point both commanding and meditative. The formation evokes contemplation of human ambition, symbolism, and the desire to connect with forces beyond immediate understanding. Forces of life, death, and the cosmos itself. Each boulder, each curve of the ship's outline carries with it the imprint of human intention, yet the precise meaning remains inaccessible. Ales Stenar, in its stark simplicity and monumental scale, stands as a testament to ingenuity, devotion, and enduring mystery. It invites questions about the people who shaped it, the cultural frameworks that informed its construction, and the knowledge, astronomical, spiritual, or social, that guided its creation. Was it a tomb, a calendar, a ceremonial space, or something more abstract, a symbolic vessel bridging the earth and sky? And perhaps most compellingly, what truths about this enigmatic structure remain hidden, awaiting careful observation, imagination, and insight from those who approach it with curiosity and respect? As we leave the windswept ridge and descend toward the coastal plain, Ales Stenar lingers in the mind, a silent silhouette against the horizon, challenging assumptions and inspiring wonder. It is a reminder that human creativity, intention, and ritual expression are often preserved in stone, yet rarely fully explained. And as we continue our exploration of ancient structures that remain unsolved, one question remains. What other meanings, lost to time yet encoded in form and placement, still lie waiting to be discovered atop hills, beneath stones, and across landscapes shaped by hands long gone? From the windswept coasts of southern Sweden, where Ales Stenar rises like a stone vessel against the Baltic horizon, we travel further north and west to the rugged, windswept Orkney Islands off the coast of Scotland. Here, among the rolling grassy knolls and exposed shoreline, lies Skara Brae, a settlement so astonishingly preserved that it offers a rare and intimate glimpse into the lives of a Neolithic community over 5,000 years old. The village sits partially sunken into the earth, its stone-built homes interconnected by narrow passageways, forming a labyrinth of chambers that seems frozen in time. The muted grays of the stones, softened by moss and lichen, blend seamlessly with the surrounding landscape, yet their deliberate arrangement conveys human intention, design, and order. Skara Brae is believed to have been inhabited between 3180 BCE and 2500 BCE, long before written records appeared in the region. The settlement consists of 8 clustered dwellings, each remarkably similar in layout: central hearths for warmth and cooking, stone-built furniture including beds and cupboards, and carefully constructed partitions creating private and communal spaces. The precision of the masonry, using only local stone without mortar, is extraordinary. How did a community of farmers and fishers, without metal tools or wheeled transport, achieve such uniformity and craftsmanship? The technical skill and planning required suggest knowledge passed through generations, yet its origins remain opaque. The dwellings themselves raise compelling questions. Each house is partially subterranean, a feature thought to provide insulation against the harsh Orkney climate. Yet the uniformity of design hints at a cultural or symbolic component beyond practicality. Was the layout purely functional, responding to environmental challenges, or did it also encode social hierarchies, communal organization, or ritual significance? The narrow passageways connecting homes could have served practical purposes, shielding inhabitants from wind, but they might also have reflected a sense of shared identity, a network binding families and community together in both daily life and ceremony. The artifacts recovered at Skara Brae deepen the intrigue. Stone tools, pottery fragments, and beads point to a community engaged in farming, fishing, and craftsmanship, yet the relative absence of weaponry suggests a society that may have valued cooperation over conflict. Some objects, such as intricately carved stone discs and bone tools, imply symbolic or decorative use, raising questions about artistic expression, ritual, and belief systems. What role did these objects play in daily life, and how did they reflect a worldview that has vanished with the settlement's abandonment? Skara Brae's preservation owes much to a violent storm around 2500 BCE, which buried the village under layers of sand and soil. This unintentional burial saved the site from the centuries of erosion that erased so many contemporary settlements, leaving behind a snapshot of Neolithic life. Yet this same preservation also conceals mysteries. Why was the village ultimately abandoned? Climate shifts, soil exhaustion, or rising sea levels are often proposed, but no single explanation fully accounts for the community's departure. Did social, economic, or spiritual factors influence the decision to leave? And what stories, lost to time, accompany the stones themselves? The arrangement of homes and communal spaces also invites speculation. Hearths occupy central positions, yet the orientation of doors and passageways varies slightly from dwelling to dwelling, perhaps reflecting family units, social roles, or environmental adaptation. Could these subtle variations encode symbolic meaning, ritual hierarchy, or a form of proto-architecture designed to structure daily life according to social or spiritual principles? And if so, what insights into Neolithic thought and organization remain hidden in these spatial arrangements, waiting to be deciphered? Even the furniture, carved from stone and integrated seamlessly into walls, hints at both ingenuity and intentionality. Beds, dressers, and shelves, carefully constructed from slabs, are functional yet durable, shaped to the contours of each dwelling. The uniformity across homes suggests communal standards and shared knowledge, yet the reasoning behind certain design choices, angled beds, recessed storage, and compact layouts remains a matter of interpretation. Did these choices arise solely from practical necessity, or do they reflect social, familial, or ritual considerations now beyond our grasp? Standing among the homes today, the wind sweeping across the Orkney Plain, one senses a profound connection between people, place, and landscape. Skara Brae communicates a subtle message. Life in this community was disciplined, structured, and deeply attuned to the environment, yet it also held room for personal expression, artistry, and perhaps even spiritual practice. Every stone, every partition, every hearth is a testament to human adaptation, resilience, and imagination. Yet, much of the settlement's story remains silent, preserved in the quiet geometry of its construction. Skara Brae, in its understated elegance and remarkable preservation, challenges assumptions about prehistoric life. It prompts questions about the transmission of knowledge, the organization of society, and the relationship between people and environment. How did a small Neolithic community develop such uniform, durable, and practical architecture without the tools and technologies we consider essential? What social, spiritual, or cultural imperatives guided their choices, from the layout of homes to the carving of stone furniture? And why, after centuries of occupation, did they abandon this carefully arranged settlement, leaving it to be reclaimed by earth and time? As we leave the quiet village and gaze across the windswept Orkney landscape, Skara Brae lingers as both a physical and intellectual enigma. It is a place where daily life, survival, and ingenuity converge, yet it offers only fragments of its full story. And as we continue our exploration of ancient structures that remain unsolved, one question remains. What secrets of human organization, creativity, and resilience lie hidden in the stones of Skara Brae, waiting for those willing to listen to the echoes of a civilization long past? From the windswept Orkney Islands and the stone-built homes of Skara Brae, we now travel across the Atlantic and the breadth of North America to the arid mesas and deep canyons of the American Southwest. Here, the ruins of cliff dwellings and ancient settlements testify to a civilization that flourished in remarkable isolation. The ancestral Puebloans, commonly known as the Anasazi. These communities, carved into sandstone cliffs and organized atop mesas, evoke a sense of ingenuity, resilience, and intimate knowledge of the harsh landscape. Yet, over time, this civilization vanished, leaving behind structures that still baffle archaeologists and historians alike. The empty homes, silent kivas, and intricate irrigation channels tell a story of life and labor. But the disappearance of the people themselves remains one of the Southwest's most enduring mysteries. The Anasazi inhabited the region from roughly 100 CE to 1300 CE, establishing sophisticated settlements at places like Chaco Canyon, Mesa Verde, and Bandelier. Their architecture reveals a mastery of masonry, with multi-storied stone buildings, cliff dwellings, and ceremonial kivas built with precision and care. These structures were designed not only for shelter, but for social, religious, and administrative functions, reflecting a complex, interconnected society. How did a population thrive in an environment characterized by aridity, seasonal extremes, and limited resources? And if they developed such adaptability and skill, why did they abandon these carefully constructed homes, leaving them to the wind and sun? Archaeological evidence suggests that the Anasazi experienced periods of prosperity, marked by the construction of great houses and roads linking distant communities. Yet by the late 13th century, many of these settlements were suddenly deserted. Traditional explanations often cite environmental factors. Prolonged droughts, soil depletion, and resource scarcity may have made continued habitation untenable. Tree ring analysis indicates a series of unusually dry decades during this period, aligning with the timing of mass abandonment. But could environmental stress alone explain the disappearance of an entire civilization with thousands of years of accumulated knowledge, survival strategies, and communal cohesion? Other theories focus on social and political pressures. Evidence of fortifications, signs of conflict, and the occasional mass burial suggest that internal strife or intergroup warfare may have contributed to migration or dispersal. How might changing social dynamics, resource competition, or external threats have altered the delicate balance of Anasazi society? Did communities choose strategic relocation as a collective solution? Or were these movements the result of a fracturing social order, forcing individuals and families to disperse across the landscape? Yet even these explanations leave gaps. The Anasazi did not vanish without a trace. Descendants in the form of modern Pueblo peoples carry forward language, customs, and cultural memory. But the abandonment of specific sites, the leaving behind of personal belongings, and the ceremonial completeness of some structures suggest decisions more deliberate than mere flight from hardship. Did the Anasazi migrate according to a spiritual or cultural imperative, perhaps guided by omens, visions, or traditions we no longer understand? Could the timing of abandonment coincide with astronomical or ritual calendars, linking the fate of these communities to celestial observation in ways that remain speculative? The cliff dwellings themselves offer subtle clues, yet raise further questions. Many were designed to be defensible, tucked into alcoves that are difficult to access, with entryways hidden or narrow. This suggests concern for security, yet at the same time, the settlements demonstrate planning for comfort, storage, and social interaction. How did the Anasazi reconcile the need for defense with the desire for communal cohesion? Were these architectural choices responses to external threats, or expressions of ritualized spatial organization, integrating practical living with spiritual cosmology? Artifacts recovered from abandoned homes provide additional intrigue. Pottery, tools, and ceremonial objects were left behind in remarkable condition, yet much else disappeared. The selective nature of what was carried away versus what was abandoned raises questions about intent and priorities. Did the people depart suddenly or gradually? Were they guided by necessity, foresight, or some combination of both? And what might these choices reveal about the values, beliefs, and knowledge systems of a society whose physical structures still speak volumes, even in the absence of its inhabitants? Even today, the Southwest landscape retains an air of mystery and reverence. From the high mesas, one can see the remnants of roads stretching into the distance, cliff dwellings perched in sunlit alcoves, and kivas echoing the ceremonies that once took place within. The terrain itself, arid, rugged, and beautiful, speaks to the challenges faced by the Anasazi and the ingenuity required to thrive. It is a landscape that invites contemplation of survival, adaptation, and the intimate relationship between humans and environment, yet the silence left by abandonment deepens the sense of enigma. The disappearance of the Anasazi continues to fascinate scholars, archaeologists, and travelers alike. It is a reminder that even the most resilient civilizations, those capable of creating enduring architecture, managing scarce resources, and organizing complex societies, are vulnerable to forces that may remain partly beyond human control or understanding. How did a people so intricately connected to their environment, so adept at creating thriving communities in harsh landscapes, come to leave their homes behind? What combination of environmental stress, social change, spiritual guidance, or unforeseen catastrophe drove their migration? And what stories, encoded in stone and soil, remain hidden beneath the canyons and mesas? As we leave the cliffs and walk across the desert plains, The ruins of the Anasazi stand silent, yet eloquent, a testament to human resilience and the fragility of civilization. Their disappearance is a mystery that continues to challenge assumptions about adaptation, planning, and survival. And as we continue our exploration of ancient structures and societies that remain unsolved, one question lingers. What other lessons, insights, or secrets of the Anasazi wait buried, waiting for those willing to observe carefully, think deeply, and imagine the lives of a people who vanished into history, yet left the echoes of their existence in stone? From the arid mesas and abandoned cliff dwellings of the American Southwest, where the mystery of the Anasazi disappearance lingers in stone and soil, we now journey thousands of miles southward along the Pacific coast of Peru to the Supe Valley. Here lies Caral, one of the oldest urban centers in the Americas, a civilization whose monumental architecture challenges assumptions about the origins of complex society in the New World. Rising from the desert plain, the Pyramids of Caral are unmistakable. Stepped structures of stone and adobe, their platforms catching the sunlight, their forms casting long shadows across the surrounding landscape. The site is both austere and grand, a testament to human ambition, planning, and ingenuity, yet it retains an air of mystery that continues to intrigue archaeologists and historians alike. Caral dates back to roughly 2600 BCE, making it contemporaneous with the earliest cities of Mesopotamia and Egypt. Yet it appears in relative isolation, far from other centers of early civilization. The city features a remarkable concentration of pyramids, plazas, and residential complexes, carefully organized within a coherent urban plan. Terraced platforms rise above open plazas, suggesting ceremonial or administrative use, while sunken circular spaces hint at ritual practices. The scale and precision of these constructions demonstrate not only architectural skill, but also social organization capable of mobilizing labor and resources on a significant scale. How did such a society emerge in a seemingly harsh and arid environment, and what knowledge guided its construction and urban planning? The pyramids themselves are striking in both design and proportion. Unlike the later pyramids of the Andes or Egypt, Caral's structures are primarily composed of sun-dried adobe bricks reinforced with stone foundations. Their geometric symmetry and alignment with the surrounding landscape suggest a deliberate aesthetic and perhaps cosmological intent. Could these pyramids have functioned as more than ceremonial centers? Were they markers of social hierarchy, astronomical observatories, or symbolic representations of the cosmos, reflecting the worldview of a civilization whose written record, if it existed, has vanished? Caral's urban layout offers subtle clues to its sophistication. Wide, carefully leveled avenues connect pyramids, plazas, and residential areas, suggesting both planned movement and social order. The city's architecture hints at communal governance and centralized planning, yet no evidence of defensive walls or significant military structures has been found. Was Caral a city of peace, its power expressed through cultural and religious influence rather than force? And if so, what values, beliefs, or social mechanisms allowed this early civilization to flourish without reliance on fortifications in a landscape that could easily have favored conflict? Artifacts uncovered at Caral add layers to the mystery. Flutes crafted from bone, intricate textiles, and stone tools demonstrate a rich cultural life, while the relative absence of weaponry suggests a society focused on ritual, trade, and agriculture rather than warfare. Some scholars propose that the city's economy was tied to both farming in the valley and maritime resources along the coast, a dual strategy that may have enabled its prosperity. Yet, the details of trade, governance, and daily life remain largely speculative, reconstructed only through the lens of archaeological interpretation. How did the people of Caral organize labor, distribute resources, and maintain cohesion across generations in a society so ancient and yet so complex? The pyramids themselves are enigmas in their own right. Some contain evidence of ritual offerings, such as bundles of reeds, shells, and small objects carefully placed within the adobe layers. Were these offerings meant to appease deities, mark seasonal cycles, or commemorate civic events? The absence of written records means we can only infer intent, leaving room for multiple interpretations. Could the pyramids have functioned as symbolic timekeepers, connecting human activity with celestial cycles, much like the observatories of El Caracol or the solar alignments of Ales Stenar? Caral's significance extends beyond architecture and ritual. Its existence pushes back the timeline of urbanization in the Americas, revealing that complex social organization, monumental construction, and cultural sophistication arose independently in multiple regions of the world. Yet questions remain. Why did the civilization decline? Evidence suggests environmental changes, such as shifts in river flow, could have undermined agriculture, but no single explanation fully accounts for the city's eventual abandonment. Did internal social dynamics, external pressures, or unforeseen natural events contribute to the city's decline? Or were there other, subtler factors, cultural, spiritual, or economic, that guided the fate of this remarkable society? Standing today on the terraces of Caral, one is struck by the scale, symmetry, and endurance of its structures. The pyramids rise like silent witnesses to a civilization that mastered its environment, organized its society, and expressed its worldview in enduring forms of stone and adobe. Yet for all their monumentality, these pyramids do not answer the deeper questions of who the Caral people were, what they valued, and why their city, once vibrant, fell silent. The desert wind sweeps across the plazas and stairways, carrying the sense of mystery across time, as if the stones themselves are whispering fragments of stories we are only beginning to understand. The pyramids of Caral, in their elegance, planning, and enigmatic context, challenge us to reconsider the origins of civilization in the Americas. They invite reflection on human ingenuity, resilience, and the impulse to shape the world in ways that outlast a single lifetime. How did the people of Caral conceive, design, and construct these monumental forms? What knowledge, astronomical, agricultural, social, or spiritual, guided their efforts? And ultimately, what secrets remain hidden beneath the terraces, buried in the desert sands, waiting to illuminate a civilization that arose independently, flourished, and then quietly faded into history? As we leave the sun-baked terraces and descend toward the fertile Soup Valley, Caral lingers in the imagination, a silent city of monumental ambition and unresolved mystery. And as our journey through ancient structures that remain unsolved continues, one question remains. What other insights, encoded in stone, earth, and urban design, still await discovery, ready to expand our understanding of humanity's earliest steps toward civilization? From the sun-drenched terraces of Caral, where the earliest cities of the Americas rise as silent witnesses to human ingenuity, we journey across continents and millennia to the rugged hills of the Argolis region in Greece. Here, amidst olive groves and rocky outcrops, stands the Pyramid of Hellinikon, an enigmatic structure that has puzzled historians, archaeologists, and travelers for generations. Unlike the monumental pyramids of Egypt or the Andean terraces of Caral, Hellinikon rises modestly from its surroundings, its roughly hewn stones forming a truncated, almost block-like shape. The pyramid seems understated, yet its presence commands attention, casting long shadows across the hills as the afternoon sun sweeps over the landscape. Its quiet solidity is both imposing and elusive, suggesting purpose while concealing meaning. Dating the pyramid has proven notoriously difficult. Estimates range from as early as 3000 BCE to as late as the Classical period, depending on interpretations of the masonry and context. The structure is constructed from massive limestone blocks, carefully stacked without mortar, forming a truncated pyramid with a flat top. Unlike other pyramids, it shows little evidence of ceremonial interior chambers or burial activity, prompting questions about its intended function. Was it a tomb, a fortification, a territorial marker, or something more symbolic, designed to be seen rather than entered? The lack of definitive evidence leaves these questions unresolved, inviting both scholarly inquiry and speculation. The pyramid's location adds to its mystery. Perched on a low hill, it overlooks surrounding valleys and pathways, providing clear sightlines to distant settlements. Could its placement have served strategic purposes, perhaps marking territory, monitoring movement, or signaling between distant communities? Or was its purpose symbolic, aligning with local myths, religious practices, or celestial observations now lost to memory? Unlike the grand ceremonial centers of Caral or Chichen Itza, Hellinikon occupies a quieter space in the landscape, suggesting that its builders intended subtle influence rather than overwhelming spectacle. The construction itself reveals both simplicity and sophistication. The blocks are roughly squared but carefully positioned, demonstrating an understanding of balance and stability. Yet their irregularity raises questions about the methods employed. How were these stones quarried, transported, and placed with such precision in an era presumed to lack advanced lifting technology? Could the pyramid's builders have employed techniques now forgotten? Or does the apparent simplicity mask a deeper engineering knowledge embedded in proportion, orientation, and stone selection? Mainstream interpretations have often focused on the possibility of the pyramid serving as a tomb or fortification. Some archaeologists suggest that it functioned as a small defensive structure or watchtower, part of a network of early fortifications in the Peloponnesus. Others propose that it marked sacred ground, serving as a religious or ceremonial monument for local populations. Yet both explanations encounter challenges. No definitive burial remains have been found, and the scale seems disproportionate for strategic defense, lacking the walls and enclosures typical of fortified settlements. Could the pyramid have been multifunctional, simultaneously symbolic, defensive, and ceremonial in ways that elude modern classification? Speculative theories abound, reflecting the gaps in evidence and the allure of mystery. Some researchers have proposed astronomical functions, noting subtle alignments with the sun or distant peaks, suggesting the pyramid may have been part of a primitive calendar system or observation network. Others have considered the possibility of symbolic geometry, arguing that the pyramid represents abstract cosmological or territorial concepts encoded in stone. While such ideas remain contentious, they highlight the enduring fascination with Hellinikon, a structure that defies easy categorization, demanding attention precisely because its purpose is obscured. The surrounding landscape reinforces the enigma. Olive trees, rocky terraces, and distant hills frame the pyramid, and the interplay of light and shadow transforms its appearance throughout the day. From certain angles, it resembles a solid, immovable monument. From others, a sculptural abstraction, rising mysteriously from the earth. This visual ambiguity suggests that its creators may have intended multiple interpretations, functional, symbolic, and aesthetic all at once, leaving the full meaning for future observers to decipher. Even today, the Pyramid of Hellinikon exudes a quiet authority. Its stones, weathered by millennia of wind, rain, and human presence, retain the imprint of hands long gone. The absence of inscriptions or artifacts forces visitors to consider form, proportion, and location as the primary communicators of intent, Each block seems chosen and positioned with care, implying a deliberate understanding of space and stability, yet offering no verbal explanation. In this silence lies both the allure and the frustration of Hellinikon, a physical manifestation of knowledge, belief, or purpose that refuses to be fully interpreted. The mystery of the Pyramid of Hellinikon continues to provoke thought. Was it an early experiment in monumental construction, a proto-architectural endeavor preceding the more famous pyramids of Greece and Egypt? Did it serve a communal, religious, or political function now lost to time? Or was it a statement, a deliberate marker in the landscape intended to convey permanence, power, or spiritual significance to those who looked upon it? And perhaps most intriguingly, does Hellinikon represent a broader, yet unseen tradition of construction, ritual, or observation that stretched across the Peloponnesus, now largely vanished from the archaeological record? As we leave the quiet hilltop and gaze back at the rugged silhouette of the Pyramid of Hellinikon, we are reminded that human history is punctuated not only by what survives, but by what remains unexplained. The stones, stacked in careful alignment, whisper fragments of intention, skill, and purpose, yet their full story remains hidden. And as our journey through ancient structures that remain unsolved continues, one question lingers. What secrets, lost to time but preserved in form and orientation, still lie within the stones of Hellinikon, waiting for those willing to look, think, and wonder? From the rugged hills of the Argolis, where the Pyramid of Hellinikon quietly asserts its enigmatic presence, we now journey across the Mediterranean to the banks of the life-giving Nile in Egypt, where a city of stone and spirit stretches across the desert plain. Here lies the Karnak Temple complex, a monumental labyrinth of sanctuaries, pylons, and obelisks that dominates the landscape of ancient Thebes. Its colossal columns, engraved with hieroglyphs and crowned with lotus and papyrus capitals, rise like petrified forests, their sheer scale dwarfing the modern observer. The walls hum with the weight of centuries, carrying stories of pharaohs, priests, and rituals, yet many of their secrets remain obscured beneath layers of sand, stone, and time. Karnak was not constructed in a single era. Its development spanned over a millennium, from the Middle Kingdom into the Ptolemaic period, a palimpsest of architectural ambition, religious devotion, and political power. Each addition, each column, obelisk, and sanctuary reflects the priorities of the ruler or priesthood that commissioned it, yet the continuity of design suggests a deeper, enduring vision. The complex was dedicated primarily to Amun-Ra, the sun deity whose worship pervaded Theban culture. But within its vast precincts, other gods, rituals, and political statements were embedded in stone. What drove this relentless expansion? Was it purely devotion, the assertion of political authority, or an intertwining of both, crafted to shape perception across generations? Walking through the hypostyle hall, the sheer scale of Karnak becomes tangible. 134 massive columns rise in 18 rows, their surfaces covered in intricate reliefs depicting processions, offerings, and cosmic symbolism. The hall is both an architectural marvel and a spatial enigma. How did builders achieve such precision without modern tools, and what guided their decisions about proportion, alignment, and symbolism? Scholars have long debated the practical and metaphysical dimensions of the design. Were the alignments meant to channel sunlight, create acoustical phenomena, or facilitate ritual movement? Or did they encode a cosmology, a human attempt to mirror the heavens on Earth in stone and space? Karnak is also a repository of astronomical and temporal knowledge. The temple's orientation, aligned along a north-south axis with specific structures corresponding to the solstices, suggests an intimate awareness of celestial cycles. Certain obelisks and sanctuaries mark the rising sun on key dates, yet the precision and intent behind these alignments continue to provoke discussion. Were these features solely symbolic, practical, or an elegant combination of both? And if they were intended to track the heavens, how might priests have interpreted celestial movements to guide agriculture, religious ceremonies, or political power? Despite centuries of study, much about Karnak remains unresolved. Hidden chambers, unexplored passageways, and partially obscured inscriptions hint at knowledge yet to be fully understood. Archaeologists have uncovered foundation deposits, ritual objects, and caches of votive offerings, suggesting layers of religious practice and belief that may never be completely decoded. What rituals occurred in spaces now sealed or destroyed? What did the ancient architects intend when they carved the walls with scenes of kings and gods, intertwining history and myth in visual narratives that still puzzle modern scholars? Karnak's monumental nature also raises practical questions. The transport and placement of massive stones, the carving of intricate reliefs, and the alignment of structures over centuries imply a sophisticated logistical and engineering knowledge. How did successive generations coordinate labor, material, and skill to produce continuity over time, especially in an era without mechanized tools? Was the process as much about spiritual discipline as it was about construction, a ritual in itself, embedding devotion into the very act of building? Speculative interpretations abound, fueled by the temple's complexity and scale. Some researchers propose that hidden mathematical or astronomical codes lie within the structure, encoded in the spacing of columns, the dimensions of halls, or the positioning of obelisks. Others suggest that Karnak functioned as more than a religious center, a nexus of political power, economic coordination, and cultural memory, integrating civic, spiritual, and cosmic order into one monumental space. While such theories remain debated, they underscore the enduring allure of Karnak, a place where human ingenuity, ambition, and mystery converge, challenging our understanding of what is visible and what remains hidden. The sensory experience of Karnak reinforces its enigmatic character. Sunlight flickers across carved reliefs as the day progresses, shadows shift within the hypostyle hall, and the air carries a faint echo of voices from distant millennia. The interplay of light and stone creates dynamic visual phenomena, hinting at intentional design to impress, guide, or even alter perception. Were these effects purely aesthetic, or did they serve ritual purposes, marking sacred time, directing attention, or facilitating communication between priest and deity? Even today, Karnak's scale and intricacy provoke wonder and reflection. It is a complex that defies easy comprehension, both in its physicality and its cultural significance. Every column, pylon, and obelisk is a testament to human labor, imagination, and devotion. Yet the temple's full purpose, meaning, and hidden knowledge remain tantalizingly out of reach. What stories are encoded in the stones that we have yet to interpret? What rituals, astronomical observations, or political strategies remain invisible to us, preserved only in the careful geometry and placement of this sprawling sacred city? As we step back from the hypostyle hall and gaze across the open courtyards and distant pylons, Karnak speaks not only of grandeur and power, but also of enduring mystery. Its stones carry whispers of devotion, ambition, and knowledge that transcends time, inviting the observer to ponder what lies beneath the surface of history. And as our journey through ancient structures that remain unsolved continues, one question remains. What truths about the minds and beliefs of those who built Karnak still wait to be uncovered, hidden in plain sight within the labyrinth of stone and shadow? From the towering pylons and sacred halls of Karnak, where stone and shadow whisper of pharaohs and priests, we turn our gaze to the windswept islands of Sardinia in the heart of the Mediterranean. Here, nestled among rolling hills and rocky outcrops, lies a monument known as the Tomb of the Giant, locally called Giant's Tomb or Tombe dei Giganti. From a distance, the structure presents itself as a long, irregular mound of stones, its rough-hewn megaliths aligned in solemn procession across the landscape. Yet, as one approaches, the scale becomes striking. Slabs taller than a man, forming a chamber that stretches along the earth like a frozen spine. There is an immediacy to its presence, a tangible weight that hints at purpose, ritual, and human ambition, while its precise function remains obscured by millennia. These megalithic tombs, dating back to the Bronze Age, roughly 1800 to 1500 BCE, are attributed to the Nuragic civilization, whose complex society thrived across Sardinia. The tomb's construction required careful planning, cooperative labor, and a clear understanding of both form and stability. Massive stone slabs are arranged to create an elongated chamber, often flanked by standing stones or curving facades that accentuate the monument's grandeur. The architecture conveys reverence and ceremony, yet the interior is stark. There are no inscriptions, few artifacts, and limited evidence of human remains that might identify who was interred. Were these tombs intended for prominent leaders, spiritual figures, or collective burial rites? Or did they serve a symbolic function, representing cosmic or ancestral concepts that we can only speculate upon? The size of the stones themselves raises immediate questions. Some slabs weigh several tons, their transportation and placement demanding ingenuity and coordination. How did a Bronze Age society, without metal tools or wheeled transport, maneuver such massive rocks across uneven terrain? Were the methods purely practical, logs, sledges, levers, or did ritual, tradition, and symbolic intent guide the labor itself? And what of the alignment of the tombs, often oriented east to west, echoing the path of the sun? Could this reflect a solar cult, a belief in the journey of the soul, or an astronomical system now lost to memory? The Nuragic people, though lacking written records, left behind extensive evidence of their skill and societal organization. Towering stone towers, known as nuraghes, dot the Sardinian landscape, many contemporaneous with the giant tombs. The architectural similarities suggest a shared understanding of stone, geometry, and communal effort. Yet the tombs are distinct. Their elongated, almost anthropomorphic design evokes the human form, an impression that has inspired legends of giants and ancestors in local folklore. Did these structures symbolize the connection between the living and the dead, between the human and the cosmic? Or were they intended as markers of power, territory, and cultural identity, asserting the presence of the Nuragic civilization across a vast and rugged landscape? Excavations reveal tantalizing but incomplete evidence. Skeletal remains, pottery fragments, and occasional bronze objects hint at ritual and funerary practices. Yet the arrangement and scarcity of artifacts resist straightforward interpretation. Some tombs contain traces of multiple burials, suggesting communal or successive use, while others appear singular and monumental, perhaps dedicated to exceptional individuals. Was there a hierarchy in the selection of tombs, reflecting social stratification or spiritual distinction? And what rituals accompanied these burials, now erased by centuries of weathering and human activity? Speculative interpretations have flourished in part because of the tomb's evocative design. The anthropomorphic impression, elongated mounds resembling reclining figures, stones suggesting arms or legs, has inspired theories ranging from astronomical markers to ritualistic representations of deities or giants. While the legends of supernatural beings may be folkloric embellishment, the consistent form and orientation of these tombs across Sardinia imply deliberate symbolic intent. Could these structures have functioned as terrestrial anchors for spiritual beliefs, integrating landscape, cosmology, and community memory into a single monumental form? The placement of the tombs in the Sardinian landscape is equally compelling. Often positioned on elevated terrain, They overlook valleys, waterways, or agricultural lands, suggesting both a practical and symbolic connection to the environment. The elevated viewpoint allows visibility across distances, perhaps linking communities or marking sacred territory. Yet, despite their prominence, the tombs remain largely isolated from contemporary settlements, creating an aura of mystery, as if they were deliberately positioned at the threshold between the mundane and the sacred. Standing before a giant tomb today, the scale and craftsmanship are immediately humbling. The wind rustles through gaps between the stones, carrying whispers of human presence from thousands of years past. The absence of inscriptions forces us to read the structure itself, the length of the chamber, the careful placement of megaliths, the orientation across the land. Each decision encoded in stone invites reflection on intention, belief, and cultural expression. And yet, the full purpose remains elusive, leaving space for imagination and inquiry. The Tomb of the Giant challenges assumptions about prehistoric societies. It demands recognition of engineering skill, social coordination, and ritual consciousness in communities often portrayed as primitive or isolated. But beyond technical achievement lies profound mystery. What beliefs, stories, and practices guided the construction of these imposing monuments? What prompted generations to dedicate labor, stone, and landscape to structures whose significance is now partially obscured? And above all, what truths remain hidden within the stones themselves, silently preserved across millennia, waiting to reveal more about the people who shaped them, the societies they served, and the worldviews they embodied? As we leave the quiet mound, with its stones casting long shadows across the Sardinian hills, the Tomb of the Giant lingers in the imagination, an enduring testament to human ambition, reverence, and enigma. And as our exploration of ancient structures that remain unsolved continues, one question persists. What other secrets of life, death, and belief lie encoded in these monumental stones, waiting for those willing to look closely, think deeply, and wonder at the ingenuity of a civilization long past but never forgotten? Nestled in the heart of the Aswan quarries, where the sun strikes the desert rocks with relentless intensity, lies a monolith unlike any other, a giant of stone, frozen in time, yet never fully awakened from the earth. The Unfinished Obelisk, a colossal slab of pink granite, rests in the very cradle of its creation, still attached to the bedrock from which it was to be carved. At first glance, it seems almost ordinary, another testament to Egypt's ancient mastery of stone. Yet, as one's gaze lingers, the sheer scale begins to sink in. Nearly 42 meters long, weighing an estimated 1,200 tons, it dwarfs the obelisks that would later be raised in temples and city squares across the Nile. The surface, still rough and scarred with the marks of chisels, bears silent witness to a sudden abandonment, a work interrupted in mid-creation. The scene is haunting. Sunlight shifts slowly across the granite, revealing tiny fissures and grooves, some formed by tools, others by the slow hand of time. Bits of debris, abandoned wedges, and channels cut into the rock litter the surrounding quarry floor, like breadcrumbs leading into the past. How could the ancients, with nothing but copper tools and sheer ingenuity, have planned to move and erect such a massive stone? And why, precisely, was this endeavor halted before completion? Archaeologists have long examined these questions. Mainstream scholarship points to a practical explanation. A critical flaw appeared in the granite during the carving process, a fracture that made the obelisk structurally unsound. The break, running along the length of the stone, would have made lifting it an impossible task, potentially catastrophic. In a culture that revered perfection and symbolism, a compromised obelisk may have been considered unusable for the sacred spaces it was intended to adorn. The ancient workers, it seems, did not risk the consequences. They left it where it lay, a monument to ambition and meticulous planning, yet forever incomplete. But even this reasonable explanation only deepens the mystery. Observers note the precision of the work that was completed. The angles are exact, the surfaces meticulously smoothed, the intended taper from base to tip perfectly envisioned. How did artisans achieve such consistency at this colossal scale without advanced measuring devices or modern machinery? Experimental archaeology has attempted to recreate the techniques, demonstrating the use of dolerite-pounding stones, wooden levers, and sand abrasion. Yet these experiments, though impressive, can only hint at the ingenuity required and leave lingering questions about the efficiency and organization of the labor forces. Tens, perhaps hundreds of workers would have needed to operate in unison, their every movement synchronized to shape a single giant block. The coordination alone borders on the miraculous. As one studies the unfinished obelisk, subtle anomalies begin to emerge, whispering possibilities that challenge conventional narratives. The sheer size of the stone, the unfinished surface, and the precise grooves cut into the surrounding bedrock provoke questions. Did the ancients underestimate the difficulty of extracting such a mass? Or was there a deeper, hidden reason for abandonment? Some speculate that it may have been more than a simple miscalculation. Could there have been unseen forces at play, a spiritual caution, a prophetic warning that dictated the cessation of work? In a culture where monuments were deeply symbolic, the act of halting a project might have carried as much meaning as completing it. Others explore theories that stretch the imagination further. Fringe researchers have pointed to the unusual smoothness and uniformity of certain surfaces on the obelisk and its bed as evidence of techniques that remain unknown to modern science. How were ancient workers able to remove and shape such granite with near-perfect precision? Some propose lost technologies, perhaps long-forgotten methods of moving and manipulating stone that challenge our understanding of history. Could the unfinished obelisk hint at knowledge that vanished alongside the empire that once commanded it? The granite itself, resistant and dense, seems almost impossibly resistant to the tools available at the time, and yet here it lies, carved with a grace that defies the limitations we assume existed. And then there is the human element. One can imagine the foremen, the artisans, and the laborers who labored under the desert sun, measuring, chiseling, and straining against the granite, only to stop, perhaps frustrated, perhaps in awe at the stone's own stubbornness. Was there disappointment, reverence, or a quiet acknowledgement that some stones, some projects, are meant to remain unfinished, teaching lessons through absence rather than completion? The obelisk, in its frozen, incomplete state, communicates a strange duality: the ambition of man and the immovable authority of nature, both acting within a delicate dance. Time has not softened the mystery. Visitors today can still trace the intended lines. Imagine the finished obelisk standing tall, its tip piercing the sky as sunlight glances off its polished sides. Yet that vision remains a ghost, never fully realized. What other clues lie hidden in the fractures, in the subtle angles, in the faint grooves of abandoned tools? Were there rituals performed before work was halted? Messages inscribed in ways that modern eyes cannot read? Each unanswered question draws observers deeper into contemplation, blending history, engineering, and human psychology into a singular enigma. Perhaps the greatest allure of the unfinished obelisk is its capacity to suspend certainty. Scholars may estimate, experiment, and hypothesize, yet the ultimate truth, why this enormous stone was abandoned, remains elusive. It stands as a monument not only to ancient skill but also to mystery itself, a tangible reminder that even in a civilization renowned for its precision and grandeur, some endeavors eluded completion. As the desert wind whispers across its surface, one cannot help but wonder what secrets were intended to be revealed by this monolith, and what knowledge, lost or hidden, might still be waiting beneath the sun-scorched granite. In the rolling plains of Antequera in southern Spain, the land stretches outward, golden and serene, interrupted only by the occasional rise of distant limestone cliffs. Amid this quiet landscape stands a structure that seems almost out of place, a monumental testament to a time long before written records. The Dolmen of Menga, a Neolithic tomb, rises from the earth like a frozen wave of stone, its massive megaliths arranged with a precision that continues to confound archaeologists and engineers alike. From a distance, it resembles a simple stone shelter, but as one approaches, the scale and ambition of the construction become astonishing. The entrance alone hints at the labor and ingenuity involved. A single lintel, weighing perhaps 180 tons, rests atop upright stones in a feat of engineering that seems almost impossible given the tools available some 4,500 years ago. Inside, a narrow passage stretches toward a central chamber where the air feels cooler, heavier, and charged with centuries of quiet presence. The stones are aligned in a deliberate configuration, forming a cruciform layout that echoes across time. Even the surrounding landscape seems to participate in the design. The structure is not merely placed upon the earth, it is integrated into it, interacting with the mountains, the valleys, and perhaps the skies above. Archaeologists have long studied Menga, and the mainstream interpretation is that it served as a burial site for important figures, or perhaps as a ceremonial center for the community that built it. Excavations have revealed human remains, flint tools, and ceramic fragments, each artifact offering a glimpse into the lives of the people who undertook this immense project. The precision with which the stones were shaped, transported, and arranged is staggering, especially considering that the largest blocks weigh dozens of tons. How did these Neolithic builders cut, lifted, and positioned such stones with nothing more than ropes, wooden rollers, and sheer ingenuity? Yet even within these accepted explanations, questions persist. The dolmen is oriented in an unusual way, its main axis pointing not toward sunrise or sunset, as is common in many ancient monuments, but rather toward the nearby Peña de los Enamorados, a jagged mountain whose profile is striking against the sky. Was this choice purely aesthetic, or did it carry deeper symbolic meaning? Some researchers suggest a spiritual or astronomical significance, hinting at knowledge of celestial cycles or sacred geography that is difficult to verify. The alignment implies intention, but the rationale behind it remains tantalizingly out of reach. The interior of Menga adds another layer of intrigue. The massive capstones form a low, shadowed ceiling, with subtle marks and grooves etched into the surfaces. Were these purely functional, created by the tools used in construction, or do they represent symbolic carvings, now weathered beyond recognition? Some scholars have proposed that the chamber was designed to produce certain acoustic effects, amplifying voices or ritual sounds in ways that modern visitors can barely appreciate. Could the builders have understood principles of sound and resonance that rival those of much later civilizations? The possibility evokes a sense of wonder, a society capable of extraordinary technical skill, working in harmony with natural features, yet leaving no written record to explain its intentions. Fringe theories also abound. Some have suggested that the enormous stones were moved with the aid of lost technologies, methods now forgotten and perhaps impossible to fully replicate today. Others speculate on mystical or extraterrestrial influences, invoked primarily to explain the sheer scale and precision that seem to defy the tools of the era. While such ideas remain speculative, their persistence underscores the deep, almost instinctive fascination the dolmen inspires. Why does the human mind, confronted by a task so vast and enigmatic, instinctively seek explanations that stretch beyond conventional understanding? Perhaps the most compelling mystery is not the dolmen itself, but its context. Menga is part of a complex of prehistoric monuments, including the nearby Tholos of El Romeral and the enigmatic dolmen of Vieira. Each shares certain design principles, yet none follow the same orientation or construction methods precisely. Together, they hint at a cultural sophistication that remains largely invisible to modern observers. Was this part of a shared spiritual landscape, a network of sites communicating ideas, rituals, or cosmological knowledge? And if so, what can we infer about the beliefs, social organization, and ambitions of the people who built them? Standing within the Dolmen of Menga, one cannot escape the weight of history pressing in from every angle. The stones themselves seem to hum with silence, a paradoxical presence that is both heavy and immaterial. They speak not in words but in scale, orientation, and geometry, offering a story that is only partially visible, a narrative interrupted by the passing of millennia. Every groove, every alignment, every monumental block raises questions that remain unanswered. Were the builders driven purely by practical concerns, or did they seek to channel something intangible, something that survives only in the lingering mystery of the site? Time has eroded much, yet the dolmen endures. Visitors today can walk its passage, touch the cold surfaces of stones that have witnessed thousands of years, and attempt to imagine the hands that worked tirelessly to erect them. And yet, even with careful study, much remains beyond comprehension. How were such massive stones transported over uneven terrain? What rituals, celebrations, or tragedies accompanied their placement? What did the builders hope to convey to those who would walk the same passage thousands of years later, gazing up at the same monumental ceiling? The Dolmen of Menga does not yield its secrets easily. Its massive stones and deliberate orientation provoke thought, imagination, and awe. As the wind whispers through the surrounding plains, one is left with the sense that the answers may never fully come into view, that the true purpose of this remarkable structure and the intentions of those who built it remain shrouded in mystery. Perhaps that is the greatest testament of all. Even in the presence of human ingenuity, some questions endure, silently inviting us to wonder, to study, and to imagine what might still lie hidden beneath the weight of stone and the sweep of time. Along the rugged northern coast of Northern Ireland, where the Atlantic Ocean meets jagged cliffs with relentless force, a landscape emerges that seems almost unreal. Beneath the shifting clouds and the crash of waves, thousands of interlocking basalt columns stretch toward the sea, their geometric perfection at once orderly and chaotic, natural yet otherworldly. This is the Giant's Causeway, a place of raw beauty and enduring mystery, where every stone appears meticulously shaped, yet entirely of the earth itself. From above, the formations resemble a giant mosaic, a tessellated expanse of hexagonal pillars, some reaching over 12 meters in height, leading the eye from land to sea as if a monumental pathway had been laid by unseen hands. Walking among the columns, one senses a deliberate structure, a harmony of form that seems almost impossible to produce without intent. The stones are cool underfoot, worn smooth in some areas and jagged in others, with gaps and fissures suggesting ancient movement or the slow, inevitable hand of time. There is a quiet majesty here, an uncanny stillness broken only by the ceaseless roar of the ocean and the cry of seabirds. It is easy to imagine that this is not merely rock, but something more, a threshold between the human world and the primeval forces of nature. The Giant's Causeway has long been the subject of scientific study. Mainstream geology explains its origin as the result of intense volcanic activity around 60 million years ago. Molten basalt pushed upward, then cooled and contracted, fracturing naturally into the polygonal columns that remain today. In this view, the Causeway is a remarkable, yet entirely natural example of geological processes at work, an illustration of the slow and patient artistry of the Earth. But even as science provides these explanations, questions linger. How could the cooling process produce such uniform shapes over such a vast area? Why do so many columns form near-perfect hexagons, as if dictated by some unseen architectural principle? Beyond these scientific observations, local folklore imbues the Causeway with an almost mythic significance. According to legend, the giant Finn McCool constructed the Causeway to reach Scotland, his rival across the sea. Stones were thrown, battles were fought, and the dramatic landscape tells a story of human imagination intertwined with the natural world. Such myths, though symbolic, hint at the awe the site has inspired for millennia, a recognition that its creation, whatever the mechanics, surpasses ordinary understanding. Could there have been an intuitive knowledge of natural forces, a way to harness the Earth's own tendencies to produce such a remarkable pattern? The formation itself raises additional enigmas. Certain areas show irregularities, columns that diverge from the typical hexagonal form or fracture in unexpected ways. Could these deviations reveal hidden forces, or are they simply the result of geological quirks? Even the way the columns rise from the shoreline and recede into the cliffs invites speculation. Was the path they form purely coincidental, or did ancient observers interpret the site as a deliberate alignment, perhaps for ceremonial or navigational purposes? Some fringe theories have even suggested that the uniformity of the columns hints at manipulation by intelligent beings, human or otherwise, though such ideas remain unverified. Yet their persistence speaks to the innate human drive to find patterns, meaning, and design in the extraordinary. The physical experience of walking across the Causeway deepens the mystery. The stones are uneven underfoot, some forming steps that appear almost designed for human passage. In places, the columns form natural platforms that rise above the waves, allowing one to stand, looking out toward the horizon, and feel both exalted and humbled by the scale of the landscape. The wind whips across the coast, carrying with it the scent of salt and stone, and in that moment, it is impossible not to consider the immense timescales that shaped this formation, millions of years of volcanic fury, cooling, erosion, and the ceaseless labor of the sea itself. Even today, the Giant's Causeway continues to defy easy explanation. How did natural forces produce such uniformity over an area of more than 40,000 columns? How did this landscape come to inspire stories of giants, legends of battles, and a sense of wonder that resonates across cultures and generations? Some researchers have noted subtle variations in the columns' angles, the spacing of their joints, and the density of the basalt that suggest the cooling and contraction process may have been influenced by factors not yet fully understood. Could local conditions, temperature, humidity, underground pressure, have produced results that modern simulations cannot perfectly replicate? The possibility that there are aspects of this natural wonder still beyond our comprehension keeps scientists, historians, and visitors alike in awe. As night falls, the Causeway takes on an almost surreal quality. Shadows stretch across the columns, waves hiss against the stone, and the outline of distant cliffs dissolves into twilight. Standing here, one is reminded of the delicate balance between chaos and order in nature. Each hexagonal pillar, each jagged edge, and each smooth surface tells a story of immense time and extraordinary circumstance. The Giant's Causeway exists at the intersection of science and legend, of human imagination and geological inevitability, leaving the observer with a profound sense of humility. Perhaps the greatest wonder of all is the question itself: what secrets, if any, remain hidden within these columns? Are there forces at play here, subtle and invisible, that we have yet to understand? Or is the true marvel simply the sheer improbability of such natural perfection, formed without conscious intent, yet inspiring human awe for generations? The Giant's Causeway remains a threshold between certainty and mystery, a place where the earth speaks in stone, and where every visitor must confront the possibility that some wonders of the world are destined to remain, in part, unsolved. Across the rolling floodplains along the Mississippi River, near what is now St. Louis, Missouri, stretches a landscape that, at first glance, seems quiet, unassuming, and almost ordinary. But beneath the gentle curves of the earth lies a monumental secret, a vast city of earth, long abandoned yet astonishing in its scale and sophistication. This is Cahokia, the largest pre-Columbian settlement north of Mexico, a testament to human ingenuity and ambition that has puzzled historians and archaeologists for centuries. Even today, the mounds rise from the landscape like echoes of a civilization whose voice was almost entirely lost to time. The largest, Monk's Mound, dominates the horizon. Its sheer size is difficult to comprehend. 4 levels of carefully engineered terraces, reaching nearly 30 meters in height, covering over 14 acres at its base. The mound's sheer volume rivals some of the smaller Egyptian pyramids, yet it was constructed entirely of earth, shaped and packed by hand. Archaeologists estimate that hundreds of thousands of cubic meters of soil were moved over decades to create this single structure. The labor required, without modern machinery, evokes a society capable of extraordinary organization, coordination, and engineering skill. Walking across the site, one becomes acutely aware of the precision involved in the layout of Cahokia. More than 120 mounds, both large and small, dot the landscape. Some were ceremonial, some residential, others possibly used for burials or social hierarchy markers. The arrangement is not haphazard. The mounds align along precise axes, some oriented to the cardinal points, while others seem to correspond with astronomical events, including solstices and equinoxes. Could these alignments have held ceremonial significance, guiding the cycles of life and ritual in this vast city? Or were they practical markers, a combination of utility and symbolism? Mainstream archaeology presents Cahokia as the hub of a complex and hierarchical society. At its peak, between 1050 and 1200 CE, it may have housed 10,000 to 20,000 people, a population density remarkable for its time and place. The city was a center of trade, stretching from the Great Lakes to the Gulf of Mexico, connecting distant peoples through networks of goods, ideas, and cultural exchange. Artifacts of copper, shell, and stone, some originating hundreds of miles away, hint at this extensive reach. And yet, despite this evidence of sophisticated social organization, many aspects of Cahokia remain mysterious. How did this society sustain itself? How were its immense projects, like Monk's Mound, coordinated? And why did the city eventually decline and vanish, leaving behind only these monumental reminders? Cahokia's largest mysteries are tied not just to its construction, but to its purpose and meaning. Some of the mounds appear to have served as platforms for large buildings, possibly temples, council houses, or residences for elite leaders. Others, particularly the Woodhenge circles, arrangements of massive timber posts, suggest a knowledge of solar cycles, perhaps used to track time or guide agricultural planning. But the full significance of these arrangements is unknown. Were they calendars, ceremonial sites, or astronomical observatories? Or did they serve functions that we, with our limited records and absence of written accounts, cannot even begin to imagine? Fringe theories have sometimes attempted to fill these gaps, pointing to the uniformity of certain mounds, the precision of alignments, and the scale of construction as evidence of advanced knowledge or techniques lost to history. Some suggest that Cahokia may have been a kind of prehistoric metropolis with sophisticated planning, far exceeding what is commonly attributed to indigenous societies of the period. Others speculate that there may have been spiritual or symbolic knowledge encoded in the city's layout, knowledge about cosmology, social order, or even human consciousness. While these ideas are largely speculative, their persistence underscores the sense of awe the site inspires and the recognition that something profound remains hidden within the earth and its carefully shaped contours. The physical experience of Cahokia reinforces this sense of wonder. Standing atop Monk's Mound, the Mississippi River glimmers in the distance while the surrounding plains stretch endlessly. The sheer scale of the site, combined with its orderly yet enigmatic design, creates an impression of deliberate intention, a city laid out according to principles both practical and symbolic. The pathways between mounds, the relative positioning of the largest structures, and the orientation of ceremonial spaces all suggest a culture deeply attuned to the natural world, to celestial cycles, and to the organization of human society itself. Yet, for all the evidence of sophistication, the voices of the people who built Cahokia are almost entirely silent. No written records have survived, and the reasons for its sudden decline, sometime after 1250 CE, remain elusive. Some scholars suggest environmental factors, such as flooding, resource depletion, or climate change, may have played a role. Others point to social unrest, political upheaval, or internal conflict as potential causes. But none of these explanations fully account for the abruptness with which Cahokia was abandoned, nor for the precision and care evident in the remaining mounds. Could there have been a combination of causes, intertwined with spiritual or cosmological beliefs, that dictated the city's rise and fall? Or does the true reason lie in something entirely beyond modern understanding, obscured by centuries of time and change? Cahokia also raises questions about the extent of pre-Columbian civilization in North America. Its size, complexity, and level of organization challenge assumptions about the capabilities of indigenous societies at the time. How many other cities of comparable scale have been lost to the landscape, erased by agriculture, erosion, or urban development? And what knowledge, engineering, astronomical, social, was preserved in structures like Monk's Mound and the surrounding earthworks, waiting silently beneath layers of soil and centuries of memory? Walking among the mounds, one feels the weight of history pressing softly but insistently. Every earthwork, every terrace, every carefully placed mound embodies the efforts of thousands of hands, the sweat and labor of a society capable of extraordinary feats. And yet, despite the evidence of human ingenuity, much remains unknown. The purpose of certain mounds, the full meaning of Woodhenge, and the motives behind the city's abandonment continue to elude explanation. Each discovery raises new questions, reminding us that Cahokia is more than a collection of earthworks. It is a complex, living enigma frozen in time. Perhaps the most profound aspect of Cahokia is its ability to bridge the known and the unknown. On one hand, archaeology provides a framework, dates, measurements, and material evidence that speak to human skill and social complexity. On the other, the absence of written records, the gaps in understanding, and the unresolved questions about its decline leave space for wonder. What did the builders hope to convey, not only to their contemporaries, but to future generations who might stumble upon these silent monuments? What knowledge, beliefs, or visions remain encoded in the careful alignment of mounds and post circles, waiting for discovery or interpretation? Standing among the mounds as the sun begins its descent, casting long shadows across the flattened plains, one cannot help but feel a profound sense of humility. Here is a civilization capable of incredible feats, yet largely erased by time. And yet the earth itself has preserved the city in ways that stone and memory alone might not. Cahokia persists as a testament to human ambition, ingenuity, and mystery. A reminder that even in the most meticulously studied sites, there are depths we have yet to plumb. What other secrets lie buried beneath the surface, hidden in soil, in patterns, in alignments, waiting silently to speak across the centuries? The answers remain just out of reach, inviting us to explore, to imagine, and to wonder. In the arid expanses of northeastern Sudan, beyond the banks of the Nile and the shifting sands of the desert, rises a landscape that seems almost otherworldly. Here, in the heart of what was once the kingdom of Kush, hundreds of narrow, steep-sided pyramids punctuate the horizon, their tips reaching toward the sun, their shadows stretching across the ochre-colored sands. This is Meroë, the capital of a civilization that thrived for centuries yet remains shrouded in mystery. Unlike their Egyptian neighbors to the north, the Meroë Pyramids are smaller, sharper, and clustered in dense cemeteries, creating an eerie, almost surreal skyline that evokes both grandeur and enigma. Approaching the site, the first impression is one of scale and repetition. Hundreds of pyramids, each constructed with precisely cut sandstone blocks, rise from the desert floor, their forms remarkably uniform, yet subtly unique. Many stand in tightly packed rows as if arranged according to principles of hierarchy or ritual, while others sit more isolated, commanding attention from a distance. The largest pyramids, built for kings and queens, display finely carved stelae, inscriptions in Meroitic script, and remnants of elaborate burial chambers within. Yet even the smaller pyramids, dedicated to nobles or high officials, demonstrate a meticulous attention to geometry and proportion that is astonishing, especially considering the harsh conditions of the surrounding desert. Archaeologists have extensively studied Meroë, seeking to understand its architecture, society, and religious practices. The pyramids, primarily built between the 3rd century BCE and the 4th century CE, served as royal tombs, echoing the monumental traditions of Egypt, yet adapted to the local landscape and cultural norms. Excavations reveal burial goods ranging from pottery and jewelry to intricate metalwork, indicating a society of considerable wealth and craftsmanship. The Kushites, it appears, were not merely imitators of Egypt. They developed their own style, their own symbolic language, and their own methods for honoring the dead. Yet despite centuries of scholarship, Meroë continues to challenge understanding. The pyramids are smaller than the Egyptian equivalents, often no more than a fraction of their height, yet the construction techniques required extraordinary skill. How did workers cut and transport the stone in a region with limited resources? How were these steep-sided pyramids stabilized against the shifting sands and the heat of the desert sun? The precision of alignment and the density of the cemeteries suggest careful planning, yet there is no written record explaining the full rationale behind the layout. Was there a spiritual map guiding their placement, a reflection of cosmology or the social hierarchy of the Kushite state? Or were practical considerations, such as proximity to trade routes or water sources, the primary factor? The inscriptions and reliefs that remain add another layer of intrigue. Written in the Meroitic script, one of the last forms of African writing to develop independently, the texts provide tantalizing glimpses into the culture and beliefs of the Kushites. Many stelae celebrate the achievements of kings and queens, commemorate military victories, or invoke protection for the afterlife. Yet much of the script remains undeciphered, leaving gaps in understanding. What stories, knowledge, or warnings might be hidden within these stone records? Could there be information about construction techniques, religious ceremonies, or even lost technologies encoded in the carvings, waiting for the key to translation? The location of Meroë itself is significant. Set between the desert and the Nile, the city flourished in a region where natural resources were scarce, yet trade and cultural exchange seem to have flourished. The Kushites controlled iron production, traded with Egypt, the Mediterranean, and the Red Sea regions, and maintained a complex social and political hierarchy. And yet, despite this apparent sophistication, the civilization eventually declined, its cities abandoned, its pyramids left to the elements. What caused this collapse? Scholars propose climate change, economic decline, invasions, or internal conflict. But none of these theories fully explain the scale and suddenness of Meroë's decline. Fringe theories and speculative interpretations add further layers of mystery. Some researchers have suggested that the sharp angles and proportions of the pyramids indicate a lost understanding of astronomy or geometry, perhaps knowledge passed down from earlier African or even foreign civilizations. Others speculate that the Kushites may have possessed advanced techniques for quarrying, transporting, and assembling stone, now forgotten to time. While these ideas remain unverified, they reflect the persistent fascination with a culture that, despite leaving behind hundreds of monumental structures, left little in the way of comprehensive written records. Could there have been knowledge, ritual, or technology that deliberately remained hidden or encoded, accessible only to the initiated? Visiting Meroë today, one cannot ignore the profound sense of human ambition etched into the landscape. Walking among the pyramids, tracing the contours of their walls, it is possible to imagine the thousands of hands that labored over decades to shape each stone, lift it into place, and create a lasting monument to rulers who sought immortality. The sun casts long shadows across the steep slopes, illuminating the reliefs and inscriptions with a warm, almost mystical glow. The desert wind carries the scent of sand and stone, whispering across the centuries. And in that moment, the pyramids speak not just of power or wealth, but of human aspiration, the desire to leave a mark that transcends life itself. And yet, for all their grandeur, the Meroë Pyramids remain silent in many ways. The lives of the workers, the intentions of the architects, and the precise rituals associated with each tomb remain largely unknown. How did the Kushites integrate these structures into their religious and social lives? Were there ceremonies performed on the surrounding grounds, processions, or astronomical observations that gave meaning to the geometry of the cemeteries? Did the pyramids themselves act as conduits between the earthly realm and the spiritual, guiding souls or communicating power? Each unanswered question deepens the sense of mystery and invites speculation about the knowledge lost to history. Even the decay of the site adds to its enigmatic quality. Many pyramids have partially collapsed, their stones scattered across the desert floor, yet the core structures remain remarkably intact. The combination of erosion, human interference, and the sheer passage of time has transformed Meroë into both an archaeological site and a timeless monument. What secrets lie beneath the sands surrounding the pyramids? Could future excavations reveal hidden chambers, lost inscriptions, or evidence of rituals and technologies that have so far eluded discovery? Perhaps the most compelling aspect of Meroë is the duality it represents, a civilization at once familiar and alien. Its pyramids echo the grandeur of Egypt, yet their distinct style, construction, and distribution reveal a culture fully capable of independent innovation. They are monumental statements of power, faith, and artistry, yet they withhold full understanding. What inspired the Kushites to shape their landscape in this way? How much of their knowledge was lost to conquest, neglect, or the passage of time? And, most intriguingly, what might still be hidden, waiting silently beneath the desert sun, whispering across centuries to those willing to observe, to study, and to wonder? The Meroë Pyramids endure as both a testament and a question. Their pointed silhouettes against the Sudanese sky convey authority, ambition, and skill, yet they also embody the limits of human knowledge. reminding us that some chapters of history remain tantalizingly out of reach. Each stone, each alignment, each carving invites contemplation, not just of the past, but of the mysteries that continue to surround human endeavor. In the shadows of these ancient monuments, one is left with the profound sense that the story of Meroë is not yet complete, and that the desert may still guard secrets waiting to emerge, quietly challenging our assumptions and our understanding of history. In the rolling hills and fertile plains of ancient Japan, a landscape of quiet beauty conceals a striking and mysterious presence. Rising above rice fields, forests, and rivers are massive earthen structures, their shapes unmistakable and yet enigmatic. These are the Kofun burial mounds, colossal monuments built between the 3rd and 7th centuries CE, dedicated to the elite and powerful of early Japanese society. From the air, many of these mounds reveal a distinctive keyhole shape, a circular mound connected to a rectangular platform, though countless others take the form of simple rounded hills, blending almost seamlessly into the surrounding terrain. Approaching a kofun on foot, one is immediately struck by scale. The largest, such as Daisen Kofun in Osaka, stretches over 400 meters in length, its surface meticulously sculpted and covered with stone and earth. The sheer volume of material moved to create these mounds is staggering, far beyond what might be expected for a society without modern machinery. Trees and grass now cloak many of the mounds, softening their massive contours, yet the sense of human ambition and labor remains palpable. Each mound is not simply a burial site. It is a statement, a deliberate shaping of the landscape to honor and immortalize a figure whose identity, in many cases, has been lost to time. Archaeologists have uncovered evidence that the mounds served as tombs for emperors, clan leaders, and other high-ranking individuals. Inside, chambers of wood and stone once held remains accompanied by grave goods, bronze mirrors, ceremonial weapons, ornate jewelry, and haniwa figurines, clay sculptures depicting warriors, animals, and everyday life. These offerings speak to a belief system deeply rooted in the spiritual and political power of the elite. They also suggest that the kofun were not merely tombs, but centers of ritual and social authority, intended to demonstrate status and influence even after death. Yet, despite extensive study, many aspects of the kofun remain mysterious. Their sheer scale raises immediate questions. How did early Japanese societies organize the labor needed to construct these immense mounds? How were stones quarried, transported, and carefully arranged, particularly for the largest tombs? The engineering involved, precise measurements, symmetrical shapes, and tiered layers, indicates a society capable of complex planning and coordination. Yet written records from the period are sparse, leaving the methods and motivations of the builders largely to interpretation. Were the mounds the product of centralized authority, or did regional clans independently develop these monumental forms as expressions of their own power? The layout and orientation of many kofun also invite speculation. Keyhole-shaped mounds appear in specific regions, sometimes aligned along rivers, mountain ridges, or cardinal directions. Were these alignments practical, symbolic, or both? Some researchers suggest they reflect an understanding of astronomy or cosmology, hinting at rituals that connected the living, the dead, and the movements of celestial bodies. Could the arrangement of mounds across the landscape represent a map of power, lineage, or sacred geography? And if so, what knowledge or beliefs guided such planning? Knowledge that has since faded from memory. Haniwa figurines placed atop or around the mounds add further intrigue. Some depict soldiers in detailed armor, while others represent animals, houses, or abstract forms. Their purpose remains debated. Were they intended as guardians for the deceased, symbolic representations of the world they left behind, or perhaps both? The variety and craftsmanship suggest a culture rich in ritual expression, Yet the exact meaning of each figure is lost, leaving modern observers to interpret their significance through context and conjecture. Why were these forms chosen, and what did they signify to the people who placed them with care and ceremony? Even more enigmatic are the restricted or inaccessible tombs. Many of the largest kofun, including Daisen kofun, are off-limits to excavation due to their status as imperial mausoleums. As a result, the full contents and design of these chambers remain unknown. What artifacts, inscriptions, or architectural innovations might lie hidden beneath layers of earth? Could these mounds contain knowledge about governance, religion, or technology that was deliberately preserved for posterity, or concealed from all but the most select of observers? The lack of direct access transforms these tombs into both historical monuments and enduring enigmas, their silence inviting speculation and awe in equal measure. Fringe theories have occasionally emerged, suggesting alternative interpretations of the kofun. Some propose that the keyhole shape reflects lost symbolic systems or even extraterrestrial influence, largely based on the precision and uniformity of the forms. Others hypothesize connections with similar mound-building cultures elsewhere in Asia, or even with distant regions across the globe, hinting at long-lost networks of knowledge or migration. While these ideas remain speculative, their persistence underscores the allure of kofun as objects that challenge conventional understanding. They are at once familiar in their human craftsmanship and mysterious in their scope, suggesting levels of social complexity and ritual sophistication that continue to puzzle scholars. Walking among the mounds today, the physical experience reinforces a sense of reverence and contemplation. Grass rustles underfoot, birds circle overhead, and the wind sweeps across the rounded terraces, carrying with it the echoes of centuries past. The gentle slopes and carefully placed stones suggest intent, yet their meaning is partly inaccessible, hidden beneath layers of soil, ritual, and lost knowledge. Standing atop a mound, one can imagine the ceremonies that may have unfolded, processions, offerings, chants, and the generations of laborers who shaped the earth with nothing more than rudimentary tools, following patterns dictated by tradition, hierarchy, or belief. The mystery of the kofun extends beyond construction and layout to the identity of those interred. For many tombs, the names of the individuals remain unknown, lost to oral history or deliberate omission. We can surmise that kings and clan leaders were buried here, yet the specifics, their achievements, their lives, their influence, remain largely speculative. How did these figures shape the society that honored them so elaborately? And what stories might have been encoded in the placement of the mounds, the alignment of the haniwa, or the contents of their burial chambers? Even the decline of the kofun building tradition raises questions. By the late 7th century, the construction of keyhole-shaped mounds diminished, replaced by smaller tombs and different burial practices. Was this shift due to changes in political power, religious belief, or social structure? Did external influence from the Asian mainland play a role, or were internal developments the primary driver? The abruptness of this transition, juxtaposed with the careful planning evident in earlier mounds, remains a puzzle, highlighting the broader uncertainties surrounding this period of Japanese history. Perhaps the most profound aspect of the kofun is the tension between permanence and mystery. They are monuments of extraordinary human effort, yet their purpose, meaning, and full contents remain partially inaccessible. Each mound is a marker of status, faith, and artistry, yet simultaneously a question that invites reflection. What motivated these ancient societies to shape the earth with such precision and ambition? How much knowledge, ritual, or insight has been lost to time, preserved only in the subtle alignments, the silent haniwa, and the contours of the land? As the sun dips behind the hills, casting long shadows over the terraces and slopes, one is left with a sense of humility before the scale of human endeavor. The kofun burial mounds endure, quiet but powerful, linking the present to a distant past whose full story remains just out of reach. In their silent grandeur, they remind us that history is often a dialogue between what is known and what is hidden, between human ambition and the mysteries that endure. And perhaps the greatest lesson of all is that some secrets, buried beneath layers of earth and time, are meant to inspire wonder, reflection, and curiosity for generations yet to come.